Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is McKinley if you are new here. If you are here, then you are probably obsessed with Stranger Things just like I am. Or maybe you've never seen the show, but you know that the fifth season is coming out in about a month. I checked my invisible watch just now. November 26th. I know that not everyone has time to sit down and binge watch all four seasons up until this point to catch themselves up. And maybe you do, but you don't want to sit through all of those episodes, which is very valid. Every single one of these episodes is basically a movie. Today, I'm going to be doing my very best to recap everything that has happened in each season, just to try and give you a background of everything that you need to know before this fifth season comes out. If I miss something, just kindly remind me in the comments. We don't need to be screaming at each other, okay? I get distracted, and that's fine. For those of you that have never ever seen Stranger Things and you want to get into it and you want to know what the heck is Stranger Things, well, let me just tell you. Stranger Things is a sci-fi Netflix show. It basically follows a group of these friends that live in Hawkins, Indiana, and they're just pretty much just living their life in Hawkins, Indiana when strange things start happening. Stranger Things. Okay. The government basically is kind of covering all of these supernatural things that are happening. Like, for example, I'm going to introduce her in a second, but there's this girl that can move things with her mind and she can snap your neck by just thinking about it. Eventually, one of the little boys goes missing into a place called the Upside Down, which is like basically just Hawkins, Indiana, just underneath it. And it's like crazy evil under there. They're trying to solve the evil pretty much. So I love this show because it's like wholesome in a way almost. These friends just stick by each other in the craziest of times, and they're literally middle schoolers, not even like elementary, higher elementary kids at the beginning of this show, and they're just trying to solve the case of their missing friend. And it's just obviously that's not the entire show, that's season 1. Let me just give you a background of who these characters are and how they relate to each other. The first people I'm going to talk about are the Byers. We have the mom, Joyce Byers, played by Winona Ryder. We have Jonathan Byers, who is the older brother. And we have Will Byers, who is the little brother. He's a single mother with 2 boys. One's like high school age and one is elementary middle school age. Now, the Wheeler family is composed of Nancy Wheeler, who is high school age. I believe she is a year younger than Jonathan. Mike Wheeler, who is the younger brother of Nancy. And we have her parents, Karen and Ted, which don't really do a lot in this show, gonna be honest. I have a feeling that they will in season 5, and we'll get to that then. And then they also have a younger sister named Holly. Then we also have the Sinclair family, who is made up of Lucas Sinclair and Erica Sinclair, and we don't really get to know much about their parents, but that is another family. And Dustin Henderson, and you get to see him with his mom in this show. Nancy Wheeler's boyfriend is Steve Harrington. Yeah. Yeah, and if you've never seen this show, you are welcome for gracing you with Steve Harrington. Then we have Jim Hopper, who is one of the best characters to ever exist. So freaking funny. He is the chief of police. Then you will come to know someone by the name of Papa. That is Dr. Brenner, and he is the head of the Hawkins laboratory. Then we have our queen of Stranger Things, 11. She goes by the name of 11. Soon she will have the nickname of Elle, the girl with telekinetic. I don't know how to pronounce that. Telekinesis. Every time I say that word, I think of Chase from Lab Rats being like, "I am telekinesis." That is what she has. She has these supernatural powers, and that's 11. Now let's get into season 1.
Something is coming. Something hungry for blood. What is it? The Demogorgon! See you tomorrow. Is missing. I don't know where he is. Wow! Wow! Guys, I really think we should turn back. You guys hear that? It's not Will.
What if this whole time I've been looking for Will? I've been chasing after something else.
So we begin episode 1. Okay, it starts in the laboratory of Hawkins, Indiana, and the lights are flickering. It's really dark. Then you see a doctor, or a dude in a lab coat, running through the halls, and you're like, okay, obviously something's going on. What the heck is happening? He's obviously running from something, but we have no idea what. And then something grabs him from above and pulls him up, possibly eating him. Then it switches to the core four friend group of Mike Wheeler, Lucas Sinclair, Dustin Henderson, and Will Byers. They're in Mike Wheeler's basement. That's where they play a lot. And they are playing Dungeons and Dragons. Do I know anything about Dungeons and Dragons? No, I don't. Dungeons and Dragons is pretty much what this show is kind of based on. They'll say a bad guy or they'll say a character, and that character will appear in their real life. And they're like, wait a minute. They're trying to survive the Demogorgon. Now, I don't know how to properly explain what a Demogorgon is. I'm going to show you a picture and I'm going to have you try and explain to me what a Demogorgon is. That is the Demogorgon that they are trying to stay away from. Trying to survive in their game of Dungeons and Dragons. We see the boys ride off on their bikes. Then we cut to Will, and he is riding on his bike. As he's riding on his bike, all of a sudden, he looks up, and there is a tall, lanky, weird creature, and he runs home. When he gets home, the lights start flickering. You're gonna need to remember that, pay attention. The lights start flickering, and he's like, what's going on? He tries to make a call. The call doesn't work. No one's home. So he goes to his dad's shed. Then we hear growling from behind him. So we see him turn around, and then he starts looking all the way up. Then it cuts to the light bulb. It flashes, and then it like explodes. We have no idea where he went. We have no idea what happened. So that is how the show begins. The next morning, obviously Joyce and Jonathan, Will's brother and mom, are freaking out. They're like, where the heck has he gone? Why is he not home? They're calling the Wheelers, and they're like, I mean, he left. Like, maybe he stayed the night at someone's house. So Joyce is freaking out, calling all around town. No idea where he is. The boys are at school, the core four. But it's the core three right now. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas, they're asking each other, they're like, where's Will? And they're like, I have no idea where he is. Joyce asks Jim Hopper. Just call him Hopper. And Hopper, drinks, smokes, dealing with his own grief that we'll get into. He's not taking it serious because he's just like, he might have just run away, but he's fine. And Joyce is like, he would never run away. Wait, that's not Will. She finally gets him on board to go find Will. We see a cut to the laboratory, and these guys are in these hazmat suits, and there's these black like vine literally growing out of the wall. And kind of look through the wall through this like see-through part. It's glowing red. It looks like it has a heartbeat. Then we hear one of the scientists go, she couldn't have gone far. And you're like, she? Who's she? Then you see 11, a girl in a hospital gown in the woods. She's obviously distraught. She's obviously dirty. She's obviously run away from something. She sees a diner, and she sneaks into the diner. Obviously, she's hungry. She tries to eat some food. The owner sees her and is like, what are you doing? Like, type thing. Then he just like lets her eat and gives her a change of clothes because obviously she's in a ratty hospital gown. Hopper's going around town asking all these questions. He's asking the boys, what were you doing when you last saw him? Do you guys have any idea of where he could have gone? So the boys are obviously just like, we were playing a game, whatever. Hopper's like, do not start investigating because you have no idea where he is. If he is in trouble, I don't want you getting into trouble. He warns them, do not go looking for him. Do we think they're going to listen? We're back in the diner. He's asking her questions. She doesn't talk a lot. Then he notices that she has a tattoo on her arm. Okay, pretty much this exact placement, actually. It says 11. He's like, what does that mean? And she's like, 11. And so it's like, what the? So then he calls the police, obviously, to like come get the girl. Then you see her in the diner. She's eating. A fan's annoying her. She looks at it very intensely, gets it to stop. And you're like, what the? That was the first time you got to see her use her powers. The special services show up, and he's like, I have no idea who she is. Just be careful with her. She's like a little standoffish. I think her name's like 11 or something like that. And they kill him. So obviously 11 freaks out, starts to run away, and then it cuts to these two officers that were about to shoot her on the floor. The boys, while this is happening, they decided the police aren't doing enough, so we are going to go investigate on our own. Okay, just like I said earlier. So they grab their bikes, they grab their flashlights, and they're looking all in the woods. They're looking all in the woods, and they're like, well, where are you? Then they hear a noise. They turn around. They freak out. It's 11. standing there, and they're like, and that's where we end off episode 1. I gave you the most detail about episode 1 because, I mean, it's the beginning of the show. You had to know, okay? Episode 2, we pick up where we left off. The boys have Elle, and they have her in Mike's basement. He hides her there. He gives her food, which is where we learn that she loves Eggos, the waffles. And they see her tattoo and they're like, what? Oh my gosh, I've never seen a tattoo before. And she's like, okay, well, I've had it my whole life. Like, 11, what does that mean? And she's like telling them, like, I'm 11. And so Mike is like, well, we'll just call you Elle for short. She sees a photo of Will and she recognizes him. So Mike's like, you know him? Like, have you seen him? What, like, do you know him? She just, like, doesn't really say anything. She points to Will and she goes, gone. And he's like, how do you know that? How do you know that? Mysterious girl that doesn't know how to speak but loves Eggos and just showed up in the middle of the woods with a tattoo? How do you know that he's gone? We see Hopper go visit the laboratory and he's asking them questions and they're being kind of like standoffish. Meanwhile, literally like behind the gate, they are doing shady stuff. Remember the wall with the vines coming out of it? Like that's literally the next room over, pretty much. So he has a right to question them. They're doing some shady things, but it's like, what? Why aren't you answering any of my questions? Because he's like, did anything weird happen on this night? Like, because we're missing a little boy and things are just not adding up. And they're like, no, why would you say that? Cut to the high school. I'm not going to do too much on this. Nancy has a crush on Steve. And so we kind of see them. They're like, there's a party tonight. Let's go to this party. It's at Steve's house and she asks her friend Barb to come along. Let me just kind of flash forward to the party. Jonathan's there. He has a camera. He takes some pictures of Nancy. He takes some pictures of Nancy and Steve. Okay. He takes some pictures of Barb by the pool. He's just like there, like being a creeper. Nancy tells Barb, like, you know, just like hang out here. Like, I'm gonna go upstairs with Steve. So Barb's sitting alone by the pool. She has a cut on her hand, and we see blood drip into the pool, lights flicker, go crazy. She sees something. Jonathan also sees something. Remember, he's hiding in the bushes. And then Barb gets just like taken. I mean, the lights flicker, she gets taken. We don't know where she is. Sound familiar? During this episode, Joyce thinks that Will is alive. We see the lights flicker every time that Joyce is asking questions to Will. She thinks that she hears him. She thinks that she's communicating with him through the lights. Cuckoo, right? But, I mean, grieving mother. She's just desperate to find him. Then we also see this moment with Elle in the closet, and because Will puts her in there, you need to hide from my mom. Like, she's coming up, you need to hide from my mom. And while we're in there, we see a flashback to her in the hospital gown in the laboratory, and she's obviously freaking out. She's panicking. So obviously this girl's been through some stuff, right? Mike tells her, like, maybe I should just, like, take you to the police and maybe they can help you find your family. And she's like, no, bad. No. Elle is talking with the boys, and she takes their Dungeons and Dragons board game. She's looking at it. She flips it upside down and puts Will's character on top. She's like, he's hiding. And Mike's like, who is he hiding from? The bad men? She's like, no. And he's like, who? Demogorgon. She puts the piece right next to him. Okay. I'd be like, all right, it's been fun. All right. Joyce has gone cuckoo. Barb is missing. Will is hiding. We think. Episode 3 is where it picks up, y'all. Basically, what Joyce is, she starts to hang up Christmas lights on her wall, puts the alphabet underneath each light, okay? And she's like, my son is communicating with me through the lights. So she experiments. She asks some questions and asks the lights to blink, and guess what? They're actually listening. At one point, she's like, tell me where you are, tell me where you are. He spells a word. Do you want to know what that word is? R-U-N. Run. Run. Are you joking? We finally get to see what happened to Barb. She's in the upside down, obviously scary, slimy place, running from a monster. That's great. I'm happy for you. 11. She finally gets a moment alone and she finds Mike's walkie-talkies. And when she's able to hone in and like focus all her powers into like the channel on the walkie-talkie, she finds Will. And you can hear Will. I mean, he's saying help. And they're like, what is going on? Is that Will? He's alive, but he's in the wrong place. Then, oh my god, The police find a body. Ooh. They find a body. Guess what? The body's wearing Will's clothes. And guess what? It looks like Will. The boys obviously find out about this. Everybody finds out about it. Heartbroken. Completely heartbroken. Then Mike is screaming at 11 and is like, "You gave me false hope. You lied to me. You're a liar. Leave. I want you gone." Which, valid. Oh, I literally forgot to say the scariest part. Whenever the lights are going crazy with Joyce, after Will literally tells her, like, spells out the word run, Demogorgon pops through the wall. So after the body's been recovered, Joyce doesn't believe it. She's like, that's a body. That ain't my son. And they're like, it literally is him. It looks exactly like him. She's like, that ain't him. I spoke with him an hour ago. I'm sorry, what? So she thinks that this boy that they found is not him. Okay? And Hopper's like, what are you doing? But then I guess one of the coroners and the police office gets replaced with someone from Hawkins' lab. And Hopper's like, okay, something ain't adding up. They're trying to cover something up. There is something bigger happening here, and maybe Joyce just isn't as loony as she's coming off. Eventually, the boys reunite with 11, and she uses the walkie-talkie again to talk and find Will. And he's like, "I'm hiding. I'm scared. I don't know where I am." And so the boys are like, "Is that actually him?" And 11's like, "Yes." So they forgive her, and then they're like, "We gotta find where he is." Meanwhile, Jonathan and Nancy bump into each other out the woods because they're both trying to freaking figure out what happened with Barb, and he has some pictures. Great. And so they run into each other. Then they're like, "We need to find Barb." Meanwhile, Joyce is at the house. She starts tearing apart her entire house, tearing out all the lights. Like, she's freaking out. Okay. Then she looks into the wall. She rips up the wallpaper and she's like, she thinks she sees Will. And she thinks that he's somewhere beyond our world. Okay. And so she starts slicing through the wall with an axe because she's like, "I'm going to get to my son." Hopper does this insane thing. Okay. It is insane. I love that he did it because eventually, obviously, it like helps us down the road. He does this thing where he cuts open the body in the morgue. And guess what he finds? Not organs, stuffing. Like from a pillow. Mind you, like a couple weeks ago, Hopper was just sleeping on the couch, dealing with like minor traffic and like things. And now he's over here like, someone just planted a fake body that looks exactly like Will. That just kind of solidified it. Will's out there somewhere, and someone's covering it up because they don't want that secret to get out there, which we know now from like what we saw with Barb and everything that we've seen with Will so far, that that's the upside down. So eventually Hopper breaks into Hawkins' lab. When he gets in there, he sees it. The vines popping out of the wall, the like pulsating wall with the red and the terrifying dimension. He sees it. So next episode, they have a funeral for Will. Now, remember, almost all of the main characters know that Will's not dead. Okay? Hopper is back at his house and he realizes that I think he got like knocked out and taken back home and they bugged his entire place. So he like goes over to Joyce's house and he's like, "I think that they may have bugged all of our things." And he like tears apart her house, finds a bug. Okay? So the government's watching him. The people that run this Hawkins lab watch. Hopper's like, "He's alive. I know he's alive. You're right. Now we need to find out where he is." Eventually, the boys are talking to their science teacher, and the science teacher basically, like, I think it's funny when shows do this. Like, things don't make sense, but they'll have a science teacher explain it in, like, kind of smart but kind of dumb terms. And then it's just, like, supposed to make sense now. So, like, the thing that he does with the boys is, like, he, like, says, like, a whole, like, metaphor type thing. Then the boys are like, "Oh, so that means he's in an upside down dimension. That's okay." The fact that he could just sit here and like tell them a story about a flea and an acrobat, and they're like, "So he's in an upside down dimension." You're 12. What? What do you mean? Crazy. So they're investigating. Lucas is really annoyed with 11. He's like, "You're literally taking us in circles. You're literally not making sense at all. You're like leading us astray." And 11 gets frustrated, throws him off the bike with her powers, her telekinesis. Jonathan and Nancy, during this entire thing, they decide to go hunt for Barb and also kind of Will. Like, I think they're mainly hunting for Barb, but then they also kind of think that Will's like in like involved in that as well. So they're like, we're just gonna go hunt for it. And so they bought all these supplies and they're gonna go hunt for Barb and Will. Hopper eventually finds out about 11 and realizes that there is a record of this girl named Terry, and she claims the government stole her baby. Hopper's like, this might be this girl. This might be this girl that is from Hawkins' lab. So the kids start investigating on their own, going through the woods, and they decide to use a compass because, the science teacher told them about the magnetic field. 11 is actively using her powers to lead them astray because she doesn't want them to go back to the lab. She's terrified of the lab, obviously. And then we get a flashback of her in the lab, and they call this experiment the bath, to where I think she like connects to she connects to people's minds and like can see inside their mind. And so she'll like get shown pictures and she's just supposed to connect to what's happening in that moment when what's happening with that person. While Nancy and Jonathan are in the woods, Nancy sees it's a gate. The slimy lit up like vines everywhere. It's in a tree. She sees that and she is looking into it and she's like, I'm gonna go in. What? If you saw something like that, like a gate like that, would you go inside of it? No, I'd really hope not. Inside the portal, she hears a Demogorgon. She freaks out. Then she escapes, and her and Jonathan like stay in Nancy's house because they're freaked out. They're literally freaked out. They're like, I don't want to sleep alone. We then see Hopper and Joyce going to find this Terry Ives girl because Hopper thinks that this shaved head girl from the diner, he thinks that they're connected. So they go and see her. This woman is not there. Not there. The lady that opened the door, she goes, you're about 5 years too late. She does not speak. She does not really react. She just is just there. We get a flashback to 11 whenever she's in the lab, and we see that Dr. Brenner, or Papa as she calls him, forced her to do an experiment to try and reach another dimension. She sees the Demogorgon. She touches him. By touching the Demogorgon, that's what opened the gate, and that is what connected the two worlds. Did she mean to do it? No, but she is the cause of it. Okay, it is her the reason that this opened. Like Dr. Brenner like forced her into that situation, but she is the one that ultimately opened it. While the boys are looking for 11, Lucas he's like looking into the lab and he's like, oh, they actually are kind of sketchy, like she said. The boys, like these bullies, like find them and they end up almost like really hurting Dustin. The boy is like telling Mike, like, jump. They're on the top of a cliff, mind you. Just jump and then I'll leave them alone. And Mike's like, walks over to the edge of the cliff, jumps, and he freezes midair. And then he floats and gets put back onto the ground. Then you turn around and you see 11. 11 saved him. She faints after she helps Mike and she's telling Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And he's like, what are you sorry for? And she said, the gate. I opened it. Boom. She said, I'm the monster. Oh, poor girl. No, you're not. You're just in a bad situation. Like, Mike's like, you literally saved me. You're not the monster. The freaking lab, the scientist, they get signal her doing her thing, and they're gonna go after her. All right, so then Lucas eventually is like, they know about 11. They're finding her. All the bad men are coming. All the bad men are coming. 11's obviously freaking out, and so they're gonna go try and escape. So they grab their bikes, and 11 is sitting on the back of Mike's bike, and these vans are coming towards them, and then you get the epic scene of these vans coming towards them, and Elle uses her powers, flips it, completely flips the van. Insane, epic moment. So then back at the police station, we see that the little boy that tried to literally kill Mike and Dustin, they're like, it's a girl. There's a girl, there's a girl, and there's a girl. Like, they're trying to like file a police report. And obviously they're talking about 11 because the little boy goes, she was bleeding from her nose. Hopper's like, excuse me, what? Because the boy is also like, she had shaved hair like a boy. And he's like, what did you say about her hair? So now he's like, the boy's like, she can do things. She can make you fly. And Hopper's like, so now he knows who she is, and now he knows that she's with the boys. I'm not really talking much about Steve because basically Steve is jealous that Jonathan and Nancy are like kind of together, but they're kind of not because they're like, Steve and Nancy are like not fully together anymore. Jonathan literally beats the crap out of Steve, and that's just kind of what happens so far. And Hopper finally meets 11. Okay? So they're explaining where they think that Will is, the upside down. Duh. So they're trying to find a rip between the two worlds, like a gate, and they're like, we tracked it down to Hawkins. So Joyce is asking the important questions here. She's like, are you able to reach him? And Eleven's like, yeah, I can reach Will and Barb. Ultimately, just by using the walkie-talkie, she can't find him. So then she's like, okay, maybe we can use the bath, method with the salt and everything. And again, this is one of the funniest things ever that shows do, where they pull in the science teacher again. They're like, okay, so how
Exactly am I going to build this? If I wanted to build a bath to open up your mind and find all these, like, reach a different dimension, and it needs to be salt water, exactly how much salt needs to be in this bath?
and he's like, you need exactly
1,500 pounds of salt.
bro. So they end up going to the school. They're in the gym. They have a kiddie pool. They build the bath for her to be able to find Will. We also have this really cute moment between Joyce and Will. Wow. Well, she wishes. Sorry. Between Joyce and Eleven. It's before Eleven gets in the bath, and Joyce is like, if it gets too scary in there, if there's anything bad in that place, let me know and I'll get you out. And I think that's such a sweet moment when she's like thanking her for everything that she's done to help her find Will. And when she's in there, it's almost like she's just in this complete black room. She sees something in the distance. And guess who it is? Oh, it's Barb. It's Barb. Decomposed. And this slimy thing comes out of her mouth. Oh, gross! And Eleven's just screaming, gone, 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 gone. She, R.I.P. Barb. R.I.P. Barb. So then she sees in the distance Castle Byers, which, is the place that I told you earlier Will had built, and it's just kind of like his comfort spot. And when she goes inside the castle, and it's Will sitting there asleep, he's not decomposed. He's just asleep. She's like talking to Will. She's like, your mom's coming for you. Everything's going to be okay. And he says, hurry. And he's obviously just so malnourished and so just like terrified. And he's just like, hurry. We also see Will like literally shivering and singing to himself, should I stay or should I go? Oh, it's just this comfort song. If you know anything about the show, then you know how important that is. Because this whole time you're thinking to yourself, how did he survive? Why did he survive and not Barb?
Should I stay or should I go?
Then we see that Hopper and Joyce have been taken by Hawkins' lab. Of course, right? They're questioning him. He's basically trying to get into her head and make them think that Elle needs to just come back home because if she doesn't, she's dangerous. Joyce is like, I know who you are. They're beating literally Hopper. And he's like, you tried to make it look like that girl ran away for like a certain reason, and you're covering up her entire story. You're covering up everything that you're doing here. I know what you're doing, and I sold it to the newspaper already. Boom. I love Hopper. Jonathan and Nancy decide to go back to the Byers' house, to Jonathan's house, and they are setting up traps all over the house. They're going to set up the lights to try and communicate with the Upside Down, and they're trying to get these weapons together, okay? Because they're like, we're going to try and trap this freaking monster. Joyce and Hopper, I believe that they gave up where 11 is, okay? They told them that 11 and the boys are at the school, but they said, if you go find her, you are not allowed to hurt her. You're not allowed to hurt any of them. By them agreeing to do that, they're letting Joyce and Hopper go through the gate to try and find Will. And obviously the scientists, like, they're saying yes to them going to the gate because they're like, we've never really had anyone survive going through there. Then we see them in the Upside Down. They're in their hazmat suits. They're trying to look around. Then we see a flashback of Hopper, and we assume his wife and his daughter just playing around. Eventually, I'm just going to tell you now, eventually you find out that Hopper's little girl was sick, and she's very young. She got sick and she passed away. So he was dealing with the grief of that. That is why he just has a hard time coping with things, but that's also why he's very determined to find Will, because he's like, because he is close with Joyce, and he's like, I don't want you to go through this grief. I don't. Jonathan and Nancy back in their house, they cut their hand to try and get blood to try and track the monster to them. Nancy's like, how do we know when he's here? And Jonathan was like, my mom said the lights speak whenever it comes. They blink. She's like, okay. They're like looking around. They're like waiting for it to blink. They're waiting for the monster to come. Then they hear a knock at the door. Guess who it is? Steve Harrington. It's Steve. And they're like, well, crap, what are you doing here? He's like, is that blood? Are you bleeding? Oh my God, what's happening? Why are you at Jonathan's house? Did he do this to you? He's freaking out. And he barges in and he sees the weapon. He sees the lights. He's like, what is going on? Jonathan's like, leave. Like, you literally leave. Mind you, he's trying to protect him. Then Nancy pulls a... She's like, get out of here. She's really just trying to protect him. And she's also just like, you're going to mess up my plan. Move, leave. Then the lights start flickering. Right. Then the roof starts caving in. There's a Demogorgon there. Then they open the door, the monster's gone. What is going on? While they're in the Upside Down, Joyce and Hopper see the Castle Buyers sign broken. They're freaking out because they're like, didn't she say that she just found him in there? Because mind you, the Upside Down is literally Hawkins. Upside down is literally upside down, so they know where everything is. It's just kind of like flipped a little bit. Then the Demogorgon comes back, starts to attack Jonathan. Terrifying, but guess who comes to the rescue? Nancy with her gun starts shooting the Demogorgon. Then Steve comes in with the bat with nails in it, which becomes his signature throughout the season. And he's obviously taking a good chunk out of this Demogorgon. And eventually, Demogorgon, they caught him on fire. Yeah, he gone. Joyce and Hopper hear screeching from around where her house is in the Upside Down, and they're starting to walk around wherever. Then they see like the literal blood like fire stain on the wherever, like the house. So like what's happening in the Upside Down, I mean in the real world, is also happening in the Upside Down. Hopper and Joyce are walking in their hallway in Joyce's house in the Upside Down. In that same hallway in the real world, Jonathan, Steve, and Nancy see the lights start lighting up everywhere that they're walking. So they're like, so you really can communicate with the lights. So now they're realizing, okay, so every time it lights up, it's because someone's there. Someone's there in the Upside Down. They realize that it's connected. So Jonathan's like, is that you? And then Joyce is like, it all makes sense. They know that it's them. Okay, we also get this really cute moment back at the school where Will and 11 kiss. They're little kids, okay? So which is a little kid gift? Mike's like, you can live with me if you want. She's like, would you be my brother? And he's like, no, it's different. It's different. She's like, why? And then he's like, it's stupid, like nothing. And then she's like, what? Kisses her. She also says her iconic line of friends don't lie. So to tell the truth, he kisses her. Then we see the agents, whatever, come in to the school. The kids are freaking out. Then 11 does this thing where she looks at them so intensely. And you can look, when it flashes back to the agents, blood is literally coming out of their eyes, in their mouth, and their ears. She blows all their brains up. There were like 10 of them. She blew their brains up. So then she passed out on the floor. Then we see Papa grab 11 and he's like, you're sick, you just come home with me and I'll like fix you, whatever, I'll like save you. And then they realize, oh, this place is full of blood. That's what tracks the Demogorgon. So then the wall, the brick wall, starts to literally collapse on itself. Demogorgon pops out, starts eating people. So the boys grab 11. They obviously run away. Demogorgon goes after all the agents, jumps on top of Brenner, Papa, as you will. A win. While Joyce and Hopper are in the Upside Down, they see Barb's body. Joyce flashes the flashlight over, and it's Will with one of those vines in his mouth. Hopper starts getting like a flashback to his daughter when she had that, like, you know, at the hospital with the thing in her mouth. So he me gagging because it's so disgusting. He starts grabbing the vine and starts pulling it out of Will's mouth. Will coughs. Sign of life. Yeah, they find Will. And back at Hawkins High School, they're trying to revive Elle, kind of charge her up because they're like, she's literally our key to being saved here. Demogorgon comes into the classroom. Lucas thinks that his little slingshot with his rocks are going to kill the Demogorgon. Does that work? No! No, it doesn't. So then Elle stands up, pushes him against the wall with her mind, and literally uses all of her powers. Then you see him kind of like disintegrate and go into the wall almost. And then we have this moment where Elle looks back at Mike, and then she looks back at the Demogorgon, and they kind of have that, I mean, just like without words, they know that Elle is going to have to sacrifice herself to put this Demogorgon back through the gate. So back in the Upside Down, it literally just keeps going back and forth, so I'm sorry. But I'm trying to give you literally all the details that you need. So they are doing CPR on Will, and they are trying to revive him. Will is alive. Praise Jesus. And we finally see Will in the hospital. He's okay. He's okay. They're just checking on him. They're like making sure that he's all right. It's the core four reunite with each other, and it's so sweet. They just jump on each other and just give each other hugs. And then they start retelling everything that happened with Will. They're like, dude, we literally had a funeral for you. That's crazy. And they're like, it was nuts. And then we fought a bad guy. We met a girl with bald hair. Like, she's bald and she can move things with her mind. And Will's like, like coughing, like not feeling good. And then he's like, they get Demogorgon. They're like, yeah, it's dead. And she's like, she stopped it. Mike's like, she stopped it. She saved us, but she's gone now. Then we flash forward, and it's a month later, and the boys are downstairs in Mike's basement playing D&D again. While they're playing, obviously Will gets picked up by Jonathan, and Mike kind of has this moment where he looks back at to where Elle was staying, and he's just like kind of reminiscing. They're at the dinner table, they're talking. Will excuses himself to go to the bathroom, and when he's in the bathroom, he coughs up literally like a slug looking thing, like one of those vines, but just like short. Coughs it up into the sink, and the lights flicker. So that's great. That's great. Hopper walks into this chest in the woods, and he puts Eggos in there. So who do you think that's for? And then yeah, that's the end of season 1. Now we're gonna get into season 2, and I'm going to try my very best not to ramble. I'm trying to give you as much detail as I can, but while also not going scene by scene, if that makes any sense. Beginning season 2, I'm going to introduce just a couple of characters that come into the show. So the first new character that we get is Max Mayfield. She is the same age as Will and Lucas and Mike and Dustin. She moves here from California, and she has a stepbrother named Billy Hargrove. He's like known to be abusive, known to be horrible, known to be just not a great guy. We also get introduced to Bob Newby, and that is Joyce Byers' new love interest. So let's begin season 2.
Will's sort of shadow. Maybe all this is happening for a reason.
These are not nightmares. It's happening. And it all leads back to here.
This thing. You said it was all in his head. And what have you done? Nothing. What is wrong with my boy? If anyone knows how to destroy this thing, it's Will.
You still have that bat? Bat? What bat?
One with the nails.
I will just preface that there is a storyline in this season that is wildly unpopular. I'm gonna be very honest, when that episode comes, I skip it every time just because it's really not mentioned again throughout the rest of the show. Obviously, maybe they'll bring the storyline back up in season 5, maybe. We open the show with, it's like a car chase scene, and you see this girl in the back of the van that they're running from the police, and they're like, Callie, do something, Callie, do something. You see her say the word boom, and you see the bridge collapse in front of the police. So the police like frantically stop, and when they get out of the car, the bridge never collapsed. So essentially she can make people see things, okay? And so then you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, there's another 11, right? We'll get there when we get there. So the first time that we see the Core 4, they're frantically trying to get to the arcade because they want to play their game, and they are trying to get the high score of the game. When they look at the high score of the game, they notice that it is Mad Max. That's the name of the person that has the high score. I believe this person took the high score from the boys, so they're freaking out. They're like, who is it? Who is it? And the person, like the owner, won't tell them, right? So they're like, who is Mad Max? Then we get introduced to a character named Murray, who is one of the best characters in the show, just because he's really funny. Sorry, I don't know why I'm spinning around today. And he is this dude, kind of like a conspiracy theorist almost, trying to tell Hopper that the Russian girl with the shaved head in the basement, that like all these things are happening, and it's the Russian government. Okay, I was obviously talking about 11. And he's trying to say that the Russian government had something to do with Barbara's death and the disappearance of Will and the shaved head girl that also disappeared. They think that Elle is gone, right? And then you see the iconic Billy Hargrove and Max Mayfield get out of the car. Billy dropped her off at school. She goes into the school, obviously, with Dustin and all of them, and Billy goes to the high school. Will is starting to have some trouble with some people picking on him at school. They put the newspaper article from when Will was missing in his locker. They wrote Zombie Boy all over the picture. So people are making fun of him because obviously he was dead. Everyone believed him to be dead, and now he's alive. Then we see that Max goes into the same classroom as the Core 4. She gets introduced to the classroom, and the teacher's like, all right, everyone, welcome Maxine. And she's like, it's not Maxine. My name's Max. Everyone calls me Max. And he's like, oh, okay, Max. And then Dustin, light bulb goes off in his head. Everybody looks like, all of the boys look over at her. They're like, it's Mad Max. Last we saw with Will, he, coughed up that thing in the bathroom. Nasty. Him and his mom, and they're in the car, and she's like, "Are you feeling okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, like whatever." He's like, he doesn't really answer her. He is like kind of like looking off to the window. So she's taking him to a doctor, and Hopper joins because Will's starting to see things, and not so nice things. He's starting to see things that are terrifying. A little 11-year-old to be seeing daily. This is when we are introduced to a doctor named Dr. Sam Owens, and he is working at Hawkins' lab, and he is running a bunch of tests on Will. So he keeps having these moments where he is with his friends. He'll be doing whatever, and then he hears a noise. Like, then he starts to see a vision. They call it episodes, but he sees like a vision, and then he's back in the Upside Down. He sees things. He sees like this ginormous monster in the air. It's obviously flashing red, and like he's in the Upside Down again. And so his friends are gone, and so it looks like on the outside, it looks like he's just like frozen in fear. But to him, he's running from a monster. He's freaking out. So that is what has been going on with Will. So they're trying to run all these tests with him. He also says this really chilling thing where Dr. Owens is like, "What do you mean it's evil?" And Will is like, he wants to kill. And Dr. Owens is like, "Kill you?" And Will's like, "No, not me. Everyone else." So they think it's just kind of like a PTSD trauma response from him being trapped in the Upside Down for so long. We also see that Mike is still not over 11. He says it's been 352 days, and he's trying to contact her on the walkie-talkie over and over again. Can I just say, before I continue, that Noah Schnapp's acting in this season specifically is one of the best child actor performances that I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not just like glazing, or okay, like truly, it's amazing what he was able to like portray in this season. It's absolutely crazy. We then see Hopper show up at his house, and guess who's there? 11. He took her in. She's been living with Hopper. Because obviously, we saw last season, chest in the woods. He was putting Eggos in there, so I'm assuming that he knew she wasn't actually gone. He kept feeding her, and then at some point, she started staying with him. Now we finally get to see him in like that father figure. Like, starting now, you get to watch Hopper and Elle's relationship like thrive and blossom and grow throughout the entire show, and it's genuinely such a cute relationship that they have. So I think it's adorable that he took her in. It is Halloween, and 11's wanting to go outside and celebrate Halloween because she saw it in a movie, and Hopper's like, "No, like it's not safe out there. It's not safe yet. Let's keep you inside." And the boys go as the Ghostbusters, which I think is so funny. It's so adorable. That Will has been drawing. He's been drawing this scary monster in the air that he keeps seeing in his little episodes. And now Joyce kind of has like a visual of what he's seeing. So everyone thinks that these visions that Will is having are flashbacks. They don't really think that it's in the moment. Because she's like, "No, he's describing it. He's not even describing it as a nightmare. He's describing it as real. Like it's real that it happened. Like he can't breathe. He can't move. He can't speak." And Hopper's like, "No, they're just flashbacks." Like, Nancy fully blaming Barb's death on herself, because she's like, if I was just like, if I was there, if I was paying attention, like if I was next to her, I could have saved her. And so she's blaming it on herself, because I think Steve's parents at dinner like kind of made a comment about it. So Steve's like, "What? It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. Like, genuinely, there's nothing you could have done. Like the way that she died, like nothing you could have done, you would have died too." So they're talking about a party. When I tell you that this party produced one of the best edits of Steve Harrington of all time, it was pretty great. It was pretty great. We also see that the boys are trying to befriend Max because they think she's cool. And so they invite her trick-or-treating, and obviously she's going to go with them. Will is trick-or-treating, and then these big guys dressed in clown outfits decide to run up on him and scare him. They scare him, and he falls to the ground, and then he's back in the Upside Down. So he's freaking out. He hears noises. You see the specks in the air. So we see him run over to a wall, and he's like crouched over. He's like freaking out, and then Mike like wakes him out of this trance. So they're trying to get him home. And we get the infamous Nancy and Steve breakup scene where she's like, "You're pretending everything's okay. And it's bull. Pretending that we're in love and we're all fine, and it's bull." And he's like, "You don't love me?" So they're officially done. So that is literally when Jonathan steps in and helps her get her home. Dustin finds a weird looking creature in his trash can, and he names it Dart. Like, Will, whenever he sees this creature for the first time, he recognizes it as something that he saw in the Upside Down. So obviously Will's like very hesitant about it, and he's like, you can't have that here. Throughout this whole episode, Max is like trying to get into the group, and she's confused as to why everyone's being so secretive. Mike like confesses to her like who Eleven is and what happened to them this past year. Because they like kind of told her that things were happening, but they never like fully described it. They have this moment wherein they are in the like gym, and she's like spinning around him on circles in the skateboard on her skateboard, and Eleven shows up at the school because she escaped from Hopper's house. And when she shows up, she sees that Mike and Max are like hanging out in the gym, and she obviously gets a little jealous, knocks her off her skateboard with her head, duh. And Mike instantly knows that it was Eleven. So apparently they lost Dart, that creature, in the school, and obviously Will didn't want them to have him, but he found him. So he's in the school, and whenever he leaves the bathroom, he like kind of gets spooked, and he's back in the Upside Down. He's back in the Upside Down with the vines covering all of the walls, and there's smoke chasing after him. Literal smoke chasing after him in the hall. And Will decides while he's running, he thinks back to a conversation that he had with Bob, Joyce's boyfriend. Bob tells him like, how I got over my nightmare is that I stopped running. I stopped running and I looked it dead in the face and I said, I'm not afraid of you anymore. He looks at the monster and he's like screaming at the monster. He's like, go away, go away. Do we think the monster went away? No! The smoke comes at Will, goes into his mouth, his nose, his eyes, his ears, like goes inside of Will. And from the outside, we see obviously Joyce come and they're trying to wake him up. On the outside, it looks like he's standing. It looks like he's having like a seizure. And they finally wake him up. Joyce takes him back home. They notice that he's acting a little strange, and she tells him that she saw the monster on the video camera from Halloween. And so she, traced it, and she showed him what she saw, and she said, "Is this the monster that you see?" And Will's like nodding. So she's like, "Do you still see him?" And he was like, "No, it's not like a see. Like I feel it. I feel it, and I felt it then, and I still feel it everywhere," which is crazy. After that, we see that Hopper goes back home. He finds out about Eleven leaving the house, and he finds out about Eleven trying to contact the boys. He's mad, and he's like, there's consequences to your actions. You're not supposed to leave. It's not safe. It's like you cannot leave. And she's freaking out. Then we get the iconic line of, "You are like Papa. Girl, Papa tortured you. No more TV." And so she starts freaking out and literally tearing up his entire house with her mind. Kids are already so insane. Could you imagine them having powers? I'm like, do your homework. They're like, then we see that Joyce is taking Will's temperature and it's cold. Like it's genuinely freezing. And so he's like, "What? Do I have a fever?" And she's like, "No, you're actually cold." So she is like, "Let me go run a bath for you." So she starts to run a hot bath, because she's like, "We need to get your temperature up." When he gets in there though, he like starts to like sweat, and like you see like goosebumps on the back of his neck, and he's like freaking out, and he goes to his mom and he's like, "It's too hot." She's like, "Well, we need to raise your temperature." And he's like, "No, it's too hot. He likes it cold." Who's he? "I'll rebuke you in the name of Jesus." What do you mean he likes it cold? Joyce calls Hopper over, looking at the pictures, and he's like, "What does it feel like?" And he's like, "I don't even have to think about some of these things. Like, I just know things now. I just know things about him now. Like, it's like old memories in the back of my mind." But then he's like, "They're not my memories, though. And they're not from the past. They're not from a future. They're now memories. They're happening right now. And I know that it's just his mind. Like, I can see it through his mind. They're happening right now." And so Hopper's like, "Why don't you just draw what you see?" And so Will frantically starts drawing what he sees, and I'm going to tell you right now, like it's a bunch of scribbles at first, and they do figure out later that it's a bunch of tunnels. So Hopper, like throughout these episodes, he's been called over to this farmer's field because all of the crops are dead. And the farmer's like, "I don't know what's going on. Like I've never had a problem with this." And so Hopper's like, "That's really strange." So whenever they find out that it's tunnels, Hopper's like, "Okay, well then maybe it's over here because all of the crops are dead. So maybe it is something that's a problem underneath." Jonathan and Nancy, they are trying to figure out who is responsible in the government, like in Hawkins' lab, for Barb's death and Will's disappearance. And so they're like making a ruckus. And so Dr. Owens brings them into Hawkins' lab, and he's like, "Everyone that was responsible for Barb and your brother's disappearance, they're all dead. They're all gone." And he's talking about Papa and like the other people. And so he brings them down to where the gate is open in the basement. And he's like, "This is what we have right now." And Like, I'm gonna be open and honest with you, we have no idea really what it is. But we have people going in there to try and figure out what it is so we can figure out how to stop it. And so he's like, you can't bring attention to it anymore because the more attention you bring to it, the bigger it gets, and the more attention we draw to ourselves, and that we're trying to solve this, and it won't be good for anybody. Elle decides to go try and contact Terry Ives that she saw in the portfolio. And when she does, Terry Ives is the woman that was just not all there from season one. And Elle walks up to her, and this woman's just like saying a bunch of nonsense, like 4 to the right, 5 to the left, something, something, rainbow. But when Elle walks in front of her, the woman finally makes eye contact with 11, and she goes, Jane. 11's like, Mama? They tape up the tunnel pictures that Will drew all over the house. Sorry, I'm a child. Try and like figure out, it's like a maze. Will's like, yeah, part of him's in there in the tunnels, but then also some of him's here. And Mike's like, here, like in this house, and Will's like, in this house and in me. Okay, great. That's great, Will. Mike is so sweet to Will in this because he's like, no, this is like really cool. You're like a super spy now. Like, you get to spy on the bad guy. And Will's like, really? But then Will's like, well, what if he spies back? And Mike's like, he won't. But Hopper goes to the field where he thinks the tunnels are. He starts digging. Are the tunnels there? Yes, they are. Because he's in the tunnels, Will can see him. So, because of his now memory, so he can see him through this monster's eyes. And so he's like letting everyone know, like, I saw him, Hopper. Okay, this is also the iconic moment where Dustin and Steve, their friendship starts to blossom because Dustin's needing help trying to catch his little Demogorgon buddy. He like just recruits Steve to help. He's like, Steve, you're helping no matter what. And like, cause like Steve's like trying to bring flowers to Nancy, and Dustin's like, are those for Mrs. Wheeler? And Steve's like, no. And so Dustin like steals him. He's like, all right, well, Nancy's not home. Let's go. Hopper is literally stuck in the tunnels. The vines took him in and literally are all over him, and he is stuck. Joyce and Bob decide to go to the tunnels and save Hopper. And Will's like, he doesn't like that we're here. Hawkins' lab vans show up. Why are y'all always here? Once they get out of the van, they try to torch the entire, like the vines and like the tunnels. They try and torch them because that's what's kind of worked in the gate over in Hawkins' lab. And when they do this, Will starts to have a straight up seizure on the floor, freaking out, like mouth open, like he's literally like screaming, like screeching almost, while they are burning the vines. So that's when we find out that Will and the monster are connected. Can't burn it because then you'll kill Will. I will just say Jonathan and Nancy are now together, okay? Like, that's not like the biggest plot point of the story right now. Will is now in the hospital, Hawkins' lab, and they are running tests on him with Dr. Owens. And they notice that Will is starting to act strange, like he's losing his memory of certain people, and he's just like talking weird, like it doesn't feel like Will. They ask him if he remembers anything from the past night, and Will's like, I remember they hurt me. And so Dr. Owens is like, you mean the doctors? And Will's like, no, the soldiers. They shouldn't have done that. It upset him. This is so scary. What Dr. Owens decided to do for the little experiment is he like cut a part of the vine off from like the upside down, and he's trying to test to see if Will really does feel these things. So he starts to slightly burn the vine, and he's like, yeah, it stings. And then they start to burn it some more, and then it's really painful for Will. So they're like, stop, whatever. So then they're like, we literally can't burn this place, because their whole plan was to burn down the entire gate and burn the entire, like all of the tunnels. But they're like, we can't do that with Will because then we'd kill him. We also get this really sweet moment between Dustin and Steve. He's asking Steve some girl advice while they're searching for his little demodogs, because Dustin has a crush on Max. And the whole time Steve is talking about how much he really likes Nancy and how special of a girl she is. So while the scientists are running all their tests, they notice that Will's not getting any better. Like, his brain scan is literally like the red, like, the bad stuff taken over his brain in like less than an hour. Dr. Owens is really the only person that's like rooting for Will. Like, he's like, we're not killing this boy. Will has this moment where he's like, I know how to stop this monster. They have all these Polaroids of pictures from inside Will's house of the tunnels. And so they connect all these Polaroids together on the table, and Will's like looking through them because obviously he can see these memories, whatever, the now memories. And he finds this one spot and he's like, here. And they're like, what's there? And he's like, I don't know, but I know that he doesn't want me to see it, so it might be important. Dustin, Lucas, Max, and Steve, they are trying to find the creature, Bart. Okay, they're trying to catch him because he has gotten bigger. Okay, and so they're like, okay, we can't just let this guy on the loose. Lucas and Max actually have a really cute moment where Max is just talking about her relationship with Billy growing up and how he's just angry all the time. And, you know, I mean, he did lose his mom, but he's just angry all the time. And she's like, he's not a good person. And so she has a fear of like turning into him. And so Lucas is like, you're literally nothing like him. I will tell you that Bart is a demo dog. So it's a Demogorgon. They call them demo dogs because they run on all fours. Back in Hawkins' lab, oh my gosh. Scientists in the hazmat suits, they obviously go to where Will told them to go to, in the spot that Will can't see. While they're there, they're like, you know, keeping up with them over the radio, and Will is just laying there and he's like, I'm sorry. He made me do it. I told you they upset him. They shouldn't have hurt him. So then that's when Mike figures out, I mean, finally connects the two of like, he is a spy. So we can't trust Will. He's a spy. All the scientists, they're all dead. Episode 7. If you look at the ratings for the episodes for all of the seasons, this is one, I mean, I think this is the lowest rated one. Like, there are important moments in it. There are things that do help us kind of learn who Jane 11 is, but they introduce like an entire group of characters and then we just never hear about them again. The title of this episode is called The Lost Sister. Callie girl from the very beginning, we find out that she has a tattoo on her arm also, and it's the number 8. So they were both in Hawkins' lab with their powers. So Callie's number 8 and obviously Jane is number 11. The whole premise of the episode is really just 11 learning how to harness her power. So Callie is kind of teaching her how to strengthen her power and really focus on how to strengthen her powers. Last episode of season 2. Insane. Hopper and the scientist are obviously in the room where they keep the gate. All of the demo dogs came through the gate. They're invading the Hawkins lab. Mike decides, hey, Will is a spy, so why don't we put him to sleep? Because if he can't see who we are, where we are, then the monster knows nothing. Smart, right? Will's literally screaming in this point. He's like, he's lying, he's lying, he's lying. They like give him a shot to put him to bed. Joyce is like, do you know who I am? Trying to test him. I need you to see the clip.
Will, listen. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Your mom.
Your mom. Their intention right now is to get Will out of the lab, get him a place to where Monster has no idea where he is so that they can kind of be ahead of him. But the only way to do that is to leave through the exit doors that are like ultimately locked. So the only way to do that, Bob says, is that they have to reboot the entire system. So Bob goes down to the system. He figures out how and he reboots the whole system. Bob dies. Okay, so he saved everyone. Everyone else was able to get out of the lab. Bob dies. When they're in Will's house, they're trying to figure out like a plan. They realize everything's connected. They call it the hive mind. So like everything that Will sees, the monster sees. Everything the monsters see, the demo dog see. Everything the demo dog sees, like it's all in the tunnels. Like they call it the hive mind. And so then Dustin calls it the mind flayer. So that's like a character from Dungeons and Dragons, and he just takes control of hosts because he doesn't have his own true form. They take him out back and they tie him up to a pole in the shed, and they have these bright lights around him, and they do this so that he doesn't know where he is, so that he can't send the monsters after him, right? They're trying to talk and they're like, we just want to talk to you, and he's like freaking out. And when he's freaking out, like the lights go crazy and he's like, let me go, let me go, let me go, why am I tied up, why am I tied up, whatever. Then he eventually kind of calms down. Joyce and Jonathan decide to tell him a bunch of stories while he's tied up because they're like, maybe this will like knock him back to reality, okay? And it doesn't fully work, but Hopper notices that Will is doing Morse code, like on the bottom of the chair. So he starts spelling out words, and the first word he spells out is here. So they end up spelling out the word that he tried to spell, that he was spelling to them, and it said close gate. Like he's needing them to close the gate. That's literally the only way to stop this monster is to close the gate. And then the freaking phone goes off in the house. So then Will starts to realize where he is. The monster now knows where he is. Great. So they put him back to sleep. They all go back inside the house. And they're armed now, and they hear the demo dog outside. And then something breaks through the window, and it's the demo dog dead. Okay. And then they see the lock turn open by itself, and in comes 11 with a new makeover. Then Mike and Elle have this little moment where they reunite, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me where you were? Like, where were you? I never gave up on you, whatever." And then he sees that Hopper's like kind of poking fun at 11 and how they kind of have their own like reunion moment. And Mike's freaking out. He's like, "You knew where she was. You knew where she was, and you didn't tell me." And he's like freaking out. And then he kind of is like, Hopper's like, "It was literally to protect you and protect her. Like, she wasn't safe." Kind of split up to go do different things. Okay, so Hopper's taking 11 back to Hawkins' lab to try and close the gate. Joyce and Jonathan and Nancy are trying to get the monster out, the mind flayer out of Will. Steve, Max, Lucas, and Dustin, they're all at the house, just kind of like, I think they were just kind of told to like wait there. And while they're there, freaking Billy shows up. Freaking Billy shows up, and because his dad got onto him early, you need to go find Max. So he finds Max. I mean, he does. And then he starts like freaking out on Steve, literally beating up Steve, and then Max like injects him with the sleepy stuff. So Joyce, Nancy, and Jonathan, they're with Will. They realize that the only way that we're going to get this monster out, because the mind flayer needs a host, and so obviously he's still in the host because the host is listening to him, right? So they're like, if he likes it cold, let's burn it out of him. So they're basically like turning the heat up all the way, and then eventually the mind flayer does leave Will's body, which, hallelujah. Most of the crew of Steve, Dustin, and Lucas and Max, they go into the tunnels and they are going to try and light it on fire. Okay, and now they can because it's out of Will. Mind flayer is out of Will. Tunnels are all burned up. And then 11 is with Hopper, and she uses her powers and she closes the gate. Then it flashes forward to a month later, and Hopper does eventually get 11's like birth certificate, and I think that's because he's wanting to officially adopt her. They have a dance, they call it the snowball, and that's where Mike and 11 have their first little kiss. Well, I guess not their first, their second little kiss. And then Max and Lucas have their first kiss. And then the whole season ends with a clip outside of Hawkins, and then the camera switches to show the upside down of Hawkins. The sky lights up red, and the mind flayer is still alive. Again, if you have the opportunity to watch this show, watch it 100%. Watching me explain it is literally not the same. This is the best show of all time, and everyone needs to experience it. That's the end of season 2. Season 3 came out in 2019. It was July 4th of 2019, and that was obviously before COVID, and I remember exactly where I was. I was at my mom's house with my whole family, and we stayed up late to watch Stranger Things on the 4th of July, and it was everything and more. Everything and more, because 2019 was when TikTok started to like really kind of become popular. So this is really what picked up the popularity of Stranger Things. Obviously it was already a hit, but once TikTok started to become popular, then it blew up. Season 1 is nostalgic because I was younger, but season 3 is just like so nostalgic in a way. Like I don't even know how to explain it. If you were not there during this time, I'm very sorry. It genuinely was so fun. So season 3.
You let us in. And now, you are going to have to let us stay.
I closed the gate.
What if he never left? What if we locked him out here with us? Want to attach himself to someone again? A new host.
We are going to end you. We are going to end your friends. Then, we are going to end everyone.
Season 3 opens up. We see a bunch of Russian soldiers and scientists. They have this really scary machine. They're like blasting a wall. Yes, they sure did open a gate. How fun is that? Mike and 11 are officially in a relationship. Like, it's been a little bit. Obviously, Hopper's not loving that. Hopper's just like a dad. in this situation. He's like, keep the door open 3 inches. In season 3, the place that is the most prevalent and where like the most action happens is a place called Starcourt Mall. While they're at the movies, we do get to see that Steve is working at the ice cream shop in Starcourt Mall, where he is working with a girl named Robin. So she is a new character this season. They are watching a movie and the power goes out in the entire mall. We see Will sitting in the dark theater and he has like goosebumps in the back of his neck. Like he's feeling something. In this time period in season 3, Jonathan and Nancy are, dating still. They both intern at this newspaper joint. The men are very sexist towards Nancy, okay? Like, so annoying. And Jonathan does the pictures for them, while also Joyce notices that magnets are falling off of their fridge. Strange, right? Not the strangest thing they've ever experienced, but strange. It is strange nonetheless. Dustin is coming back from summer camp. And at the summer camp, he has a supposed girlfriend named Susie. He comes back home and then he's like, none of my friends are answering, none of my friends are answering. And then he's standing in his room trying to get a hold of them. And all of his toys start walking on their own and he starts freaking out. And then it was just 11 controlling his toys. Like it was just a cute moment. At one of the pools in Hawkins, Billy is now a lifeguard. You know what Billy looks like. All of the moms are obsessed with him. Okay? Kind of creepy. So Billy is high school age. Does he look it? No, he doesn't. We see that Hopper and Joyce are having a whole conversation talking about Mike and 11. He's like, why do they kiss so much? Like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, they're teenagers. Like, it's just like, what's going to happen? And he's like, no, but I don't want it happening. She's like, you just got to talk to them. He's like, I don't know how to do that. And she's like, well, just write it down. Let's practice. Then eventually Hopper kind of asks her on a date. What if we like practice at like dinner? Dustin takes the whole gang and they're trying to go up to the top of the mountain and they're going to try and use his big satellite to try and contact his girlfriend. Okay, they're kind of thinking his girlfriend's fake. So while they're doing that, Mike and 11 leave because they're like, we want to dip. And while they're walking up the mountain, Will feels something again. You see him do this like a lot. Whenever he does that, because he has goosebumps and like he like feels something bad's happening. And he only does that whenever like the Upside Down is involved. Then we cut to a bunch of rats running into like an abandoned warehouse or something, and they're exploding. They're exploding, and the remains are like coming together as one. All of the other seasons, like I could kind of like handle the gore or handle the monster, and this season the monster is just genuinely so disgusting that like anytime it pops up, like I hate the noises as well. Anytime it pops up I always skip because I'm like, so with these rats, Nancy eventually gets a call while she's working at the newspaper, and it's from this old woman saying that there's diseased rats somewhere at our house. And Nancy's like, you know what, I'm actually going to go investigate this. Jonathan's like, why would you go investigate this? She's just a crazy old lady. And Nancy's like, I want to go investigate it because what if it's real? What if it's a story? Right, so Hopper eventually talks to Mike and Elle and he's trying to have the whole like heart to heart with them. He literally cannot get a single word out, and Mike and 11 are kind of giggling, and Hopper's like, hey Mike, your mom called. It's your grandma. Literally so unhinged. So Mike's over here freaking out, and Hopper basically is just like, I need you to back off. I need you to back off or you're gonna get hurt. He's like, I don't want you hanging out with her as much as you do. We see that Billy is on his way to a date with Miss Wheeler. I don't so strange. Like he gets run off the road and he like gets hurt. And then he hears noises outside. He's like outside of the warehouse that we saw the same rats go into, right? Well, something grabs him and pulls him into the warehouse. Like drags him across the street into the warehouse. He was dragged by a vine from the Upside Down. The like it's like it looks like a claw. It looks like one of the vines, but there's a claw at the very end of it, like a hand, and it goes onto his face. He's like, what do you want? What do you want from me? Like, what's going on? And guess who's in the air? The Mind Flayer. Oh, great. You're back. Season, you really get to see Dustin and Steve's relationship, like, so strong. Like, it's genuinely so cute how Steve went from being, like, the popular boy to being, like, Dustin's best friend. And it's so cute. All right, so while Dustin is visiting Steve at the ice cream shop, he tells Steve that he tapped into, like, a Russian communication line with his massive walkie-talkie like satellite thing. They're just kind of saying like phrases over and over, and so he's like, I have no idea what they're saying. Steve, I need your help. And so they're gonna try and translate whatever the heck these Russian soldiers are saying. So Max and 11 are starting to get close because 11 goes up to Max and is like, "We need to talk." And she tells her about how Mike has been acting weird, which like we know he's acting weird because Hopper practically threatened the kid. And so he's like been avoiding her and like hanging up on her calls and like, Max is like, literally dump him. Like you're better than him, girl boss. Mike's mom go and find Billy at the pool, and she's like trying to apologize to him for not going to the date because she ended up not going on the date. Like she was getting ready, she was about to leave, and she decided not to go. And obviously, we see that Billy was on the way, didn't fully make it. So she's going up to him to apologize for not being there. And obviously, he's taken over by some dark entity, right? We know it's the Mind Flayer. He turns around, grabs her head, slams it into a shelf. What? Robin decided to start helping Dustin and Steve decipher what these messages are from the Russian soldiers that they hear. Max and 11 are they're at the mall doing girl things. They're dressing up, they're having photo shoots, they're having a lot of fun. In the meantime of this, Joyce is supposed to go on a date with Hopper. She ends up going to the science teacher's house, if you remember him, the science teacher's house, because she's like, the magnets. She's like, "Could you tell me what's going on with the magnets?" And he was basically like,
The electromagnetic field is like off balance.
but basically just in your mind think that whatever the science teacher says is 100% right, and that's that. Billy, when he was in the upside down, the mind flayer like took form of him and basically told him, "I want you to build." And he's like, "Build what?" "Build what?" Which we obviously know now he's wanting him to build like an army. Okay, so while Billy is at work, he decides to kidnap one of the other lifeguards, kill her, and like recruit her basically. Nancy, I said that she was wanting to investigate the whole diseased rat thing. So she goes to the old woman's house. The old woman's like, "This is the rat." They're like taking pictures, whatever. Then you see while they're not in the room, the rat freaking explodes and goes into a vent and like, which like where it's going. Basically, they're trying to build a form so that the mind flayer could have a physical body, a physical form. It still has hosts to kind of help recruit, but now it has a physical form and it's not just in the sky. Okay. Joyce is at the scientist's house and she stood up Hopper. Robin eventually figures out what the sayings are. Okay. It's like the week is long, the silver cat feeds, and just like a bunch of random things like that, right? So they're like, it doesn't make sense, but they're walking around the mall and they're like, okay, so it's definitely a code for something. And Steve recognizes the music in the background of the tape that Dustin got of the Russians. And it's like the carousel music for like the horse. And so Steve is like, "Holy crap, this isn't coming from Russia. This is coming from Hawkins. This is coming from Starcourt." Like, so they're like, the Russians are here, the bad guys are here. So remember that gate they opened up in the freaking beginning of the show? Are you kidding? So it's not in Russia that they open the gate. They open the gate here. Max and Elle have this idea where they're like, "We're going to try and spy on people and just see what they're doing." So their first thought is, let's go spy on Mike, like using Elle's telekinetic powers, just, being boys. They're like spinning a bottle and the bottle lands on Billy. And Max is like, "Okay, but if he's doing something disgusting, like get out." And so when Elle gets there, she sees Billy, and guess what? Billy sees her. So now she knows that he's acting strange. Max and Elle, they're like, "We are going to go investigate what's going on with Billy." So eventually they go to Billy and Max's house. They go into his room. Everything looks semi-normal. And then they go under his sink and they find blood-stained, like a blood-stained shirt, like a lifeguard shirt, and like a whistle, which we know the whistle is Heather's. So now they're like, "Oh, something's not right, like completely. Why is there blood?" Joyce ends up going to Hopper's house and he's obviously upset that she stood him up. She's like telling him where she was exactly and what was happening, what the scientist was telling him and telling her. And he was like, "You ditched me to go to his house." And she's like, "No, it's not like that. Like, it's the magnets, whatever." And so she was like, "It's the lab. The lab has something to do with it." Back in Mike's basement, the boys are playing D&D. Mike and Lucas are not into it, but Will, on the other hand, is like the most into it that he's ever been. That's when we get this iconic moment where he is dressed as the wizard. And the boys are just like, "Oh no, whatever." So Will like storms out of the basement and he's like talking to Mike and he's like, "You're ruining everything. We're literally like, we don't even get to play anymore. We don't even get to do anything anymore. You're throwing all this away. You're ruining everything for a girl. And Mike is like, Elle's not just some stupid girl. And he's like, it's not my fault you don't like girls. And Will's like, Mike's like, you had to have known that we weren't just going to be playing in our basement, in my basement all the time, right? Like, we're not going to do that. Like, it's just like we had to get girlfriends. We had to grow up eventually. I just feel for Will in this moment because obviously I mean, not his whole childhood, but a lot of his childhood, the past like year and a half, like 2 years, has been taken because of this evilness that he had to deal with, right? Like everyone else had to experience it too, but he literally had the evil inside of him and he was trapped in the upside down, trapped in there. So it's like I feel for him because he's probably just trying to revert back to a sense of comfortability before the traumatic thing happened, because he's like, if I can revert there, it's a sense of comfort, it's a sense of happiness. Maybe part of him's trying to erase what happened, but he's like, I just want to feel comfortable, and I know that in that moment I had my friends there, I had happiness, and we all had fun. And then obviously everything turned to crap, which I also think it's interesting that he's still so in love with Dungeons and Dragons, because all of the monsters are like real, like in their universe they're all like coming to life, like the Mind Flayer, the Demogorgon, the Demodogs, like it's all coming to life, right? um but maybe he likes it so much now because he likes that he's able to manipulate it in a way that he can control rather than what happened to him in life. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. I really try not to do that because I did study psychology in college. I really try not to think about that, but you kind of have to with Will. Like, he is such a complex character. We do find out that Joyce is wanting to move. She's already put up the house for sale. The kids don't know because she's wanting to leave this place, which I would too. Max and Elle, they go to Heather's house, the lifeguard that was taken by the Mind Flayer. They go to to her house because they're like, we need to see like what's going on, see if she's okay, because obviously the last thing that Elle saw was Heather, like in her mind she saw Heather like saying help me and being dragged through the bath, like dragged through the water. When they show up, Billy is sitting at the dinner table and he's like sitting with Heather's parents and he's like, oh, this is my sister Maxine. That goes up and he's like introducing Max to her parents. Elle's like, where is she? He's like, I'm sorry, where's who? And then Heather pops out from the kitchen. Then Billy looks at Elle and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch your name. And she looks at him and she's like, Elle. And in the literal deepest, scariest voice ever, he goes, Elle. Wait, that was kind of scary. Sorry, didn't mean to spook you there. He has some flashbacks to like Elle closing the gate in season 2 and all these things, because obviously the Mind Flayer is inside of Billy, so he remembers her. So as soon as he hears her name, it clicks to him just exactly who she is, but he also knows how powerful she is too. To the next episode, Heather and Billy have kidnapped Heather's parents and taken them to the underground layer or whatever, and they've tied them up. And you see the physical form of the Mind Flayer with, the hands, the claws, the arms, whatever, go and literally suck the life out of them and kill them. Dustin, Steve, and Robin, they are spying on the workers of the Starcourt Mall, and they see that the people are literally armed, so they are trying to figure out ways to get into that room. Will decides to meet up with Mike, Elle, Max, and Lucas, and he opens up to them and he says, I have been feeling things. Like, I've been feeling the same things that I've been feeling the last time that the Upside Down was here. Like, I felt it in the movie, I felt it on the field, I felt it yesterday at Castle Byers, I felt it, like, he keeps feeling it over and over again. So then they're all confused. They're like, Elle closed the gate. And he's like, yeah, I know you closed the gate, but what if the part that came out of me whenever my mom burned it out of me, what if that part's still in our world? They're like, okay, but they closed the gate, so like the brain died, so doesn't the body die as well? And he's like, yeah, but what if that never returned back to its brain? But then Mike is like, let's just assume the worst, that the Mind Flayer is back. So Will is like, I mean, if it is back, he needs a host, because obviously the part that was in Will, he needed a host. And so then Eleven and Max look at each other. They're like, and Elle's like, how do you know if someone's a host? Because now they're assuming Billy is a host, which like he is. Will kind of explains to the group of friends, he's like, the Mind Flayer only uses you when he needs you, okay? And when he's not using you and he doesn't need you, you're dormant. So it's like you're not there, and then as soon as he needs you, you wake up, pretty much. So they're like, we need to figure out if Billy's the host. So the boys have a plan where they're going to try and trap Billy inside of the sauna at the pool to figure out if he's the host, which, like, smart. It's smart, but it's crazy. Could you imagine he's not? So all this is happening while Robin, Steve, and Dustin are trying to figure out how to get into that room because they know they can't get in through the armed guards. So Robin's like, what if we just go through the air ducts? Dustin doesn't fit as well. He doesn't really fit. So then they ask Erica to join to get in. So because she can fit through the air ducts. Erica ends up getting into an elevator and letting them inside. They end up getting inside this place. Then Steve decides to open one of the boxes, which is crazy. Like, you don't know what they're doing, shady business, and you open one of the boxes. Then he sees like this case. He turns it open, he brings it up, and it's like literally this green like goo. I don't know. Mike, Elle, Max, and Lucas are luring Billy into the sauna. They end up succeeding. They use a mannequin. They like are using their voice to be like, Billy, Billy, like come and get me, whatever. They use a mannequin inside the sauna. Billy goes inside the sauna and they end up trapping him in there. And he's screaming at them and he's like, y'all think this is funny? Door, open the door, like screaming. The heat is turned up absolutely all the way. Billy's on the floor and he's like sobbing. And so then he starts to like apologize and he's like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Like, it's not me. It's not my fault, Max. And he's like apologizing to Max. This is what's hard. Billy's like, I did bad things, Max. I did bad things and I didn't mean to. It wasn't me. He made me do it. So it's like familiar to what Will was saying. And now Billy's like, I don't know, it's a shadow, like a giant shadow. He made me do it, please. Like, could this be actually Billy? Like the Billy side of Billy and not the Mind Flayer side? Yes, it honestly, like, probably is. But remember, the Mind Flayer also has control over him. So, like, Will was able to slip through the cracks a little bit. And you see Will get the feeling again and he's like, he's activated. And so you see that Billy grabs a shard of glass, breaks through the window of the door, and literally almost slices Max's head off. Lucas, remember how season 1 he tried to use his slingshot with his rocks and it didn't work? Yeah. So now he uses the slingshot with the rock and knocks Billy over onto the floor. The lights are flickering, the lights are going crazy, and eventually Billy gets out and Elle uses her powers to grab like a dumbbell. What are those called, guys? I don't work out. She grabs a weight and pushes him against the wall, with her mind. Ah! He throws it back at her. He starts choking her. Then Mike comes and saves the day and he hits Billy over the head, knocking him down. Then Elle uses her powers again and she throws him out the side of the wall. It's so different too because obviously the Mind Flayer is the same monster from season 2 that was inside of Will, but Will was a kid, right? So he didn't have the physical capabilities that now Billy does, which is terrifying. So Hopper eventually finds the Russian dude, the soldier that was like literally trying to kill him. While he's there, he finds a man. They take him hostage. Mind you, this man doesn't look dangerous at all. Like, he has like a curly little afro. His name is Alexei. If you've already seen season 3, then you know that everyone has a connection to Alexei. So Hopper and Joyce end up taking Alexei with them. They're just trying to take him because they're like, now we have advantage and now he can get us to where we need to go. Okay, they soon find out though that Alexei doesn't speak any English, so they're like, who can we talk to that speaks Russian? Well, guess what? Murray. Murray speaks Russian, so they take him to Murray, and then they're able to have a whole conversation. Erica, Dustin, Robin, and Steve eventually get out of the elevator at the mall. They find a bunch of tunnels, again with the tunnels, and it's like a Russian layer. They are finally able to see them trying to open the gate, which obviously they know what the gate entails. They know what's inside and what's behind the gate. Jonathan, Nancy, and the rest of the kids, they decided that they wanted to go to the hospital to check in with Miss Driscoll. Okay, remember the crazy lady that thought there were diseased rats in her house? She ended up having like a disease of herself, and so they were like, we're gonna go check on her because they think that she's one of the diseased that the Mind Flayer is controlling. While they are there, a bunch of the people that have died, they literally start to try to kill Jonathan and Nancy, and then they end up like getting hurt because Jonathan and Nancy are fighting them. And then you see them fall to the floor and explode, just like the rats did. They explode, but their insides all are like headed towards one place to become one. Murray, Hopper, Joyce, and Alexei are all at Murray's house, and in order to get Alexei to talk, he said that he's hungry. So Hopper goes out and gets him some Burger King and then gets him a Slurpee. Alexi is all about, I want the red cherry Slurpee. Okay, so now just pop culture moment. Whenever this came out, 2019, on June 4th, in honor of Alexi, they did a whole red cherry Slurpee like special, and it was so fun. Like I remember going to get that with my family. Later on down the road, like obviously Alexi's like with them and helping them, but he ends up getting killed by the same soldier that's trying to attack Hopper that works for Starcourt. It was literally the most heartbreaking scene ever. Like he was literally just so excited to win his stuffed animal at the game at the festival, and they killed him. Back at the tunnels of Starcourt Mall, Erica and Dustin are able to get back into the vents and kind of escape. Steve and Robin are trapped. Okay, they get captured by the Russian soldiers. And he's like, "Yo, I literally work at the ice cream shop upstairs." Like, but the reason they're so confused is because of the like marine outfit that he's wearing. But he's like, "No, I literally work at the ice cream shop upstairs." Elle, there's a lot of them. Elle, Nancy, Jonathan, Lucas, Max, Mike, and Will. They're trying to figure out where the mind flayer is. They're trying to figure out where Billy is hidden, right? So Elle is using her power. She's gonna try and find out where he is. Mike admits, like he's talking to them, and he's like, "I hate that you guys just try and use Elle for her power. She's not a machine." He's like, I love her. I don't want to lose her." And then like finally he admits that he loves her. Okay, Elle found him using her powers. Elle decides that she wants to try and figure out where the source of the mind flayer is. Like, are they hiding out? Where's the army? And Mike's like, "We can't go there. It's a trap." She's like, "I know, but like we can figure out like where it is. Like we're not gonna follow Billy, but I know Billy can show me if I like go to his mind." So she goes to his mind, and when she's there, she's like trying to get his attention. He ends up grabbing her arm, and whenever he does, it throws her into his mind, and it throws her into a memory. And it's a good memory. It's a memory of him and his mom. And his mom didn't die, but she ended up leaving. So like he's not like he doesn't see his mom ever. Um and so it's a good memory of him and his mom on the beach. And then Elle looks up in the sky, and she notices a red, like flashing cloud, like the upside down. So she ends up walking towards it. When the closer she gets to it, the worse the memories of Billy's get. So it'll be like memories of his dad abusing him, and then it'll be memories of Billy growing up and bullying kids and throwing them to the ground and punching them, and then it'll be a memory of him calling his mom, being like, "Mom, please don't leave. Like, please, like, how long are you gonna go away? Like, please don't leave me, whatever." And then she ends up finally getting to the center, to the source, and she finds out that it's the warehouse where Billy was like taken by the main mind flayer first. So he has a good memory, and then the closer you get to the mind flayer is using his worst memories to get a hold of him, pretty much. 11, while she is in Billy's mind, he ends up kind of manipulating it to where it looks like he's back in her mind, like he like invades her mind, and basically he has this whole conversation with her, like the mind flayer, where he's like, "We built it all for you." And she's like freaking out. She's like, "No, no, no." She is the one that opened the gate. She is the one that let everyone into the world, right? Unintentionally, but she did. By tapping the Demogorgon. Billy ends up showing up at the house and literally attacking everybody. And part of the mind flayer's arm goes into Elle's leg, and they chop, the arm. The arm goes away. It ends up like leaving. But part of it is still in her leg. She's still like pretty injured. Elle and the whole gang go to the supermarket because she is so injured that they're like, "We need cleaning supplies." While they're in the supermarket, Lucas and Will and Mike have this great idea to use fireworks to distract or hurt. I mean, pretty much distract the mind flayer. There was like this kind of what if whenever the season first came out. There was kind of this what if of like Steven and Robin, like maybe they'll get together, maybe they won't, and they realize actually Robin's not even into guys at all. Now everyone's at the mall. Elle is obviously really hurt, right? Her leg, inside of her leg, was part of the mind flayer. Okay. When they got it out of her leg, it essentially weakened her like a lot, and she ends up losing her powers. So Hopper, Joyce, and Murray, they end up going underneath the mall, and they're like, "We're going to take over the whole Russian invasion, and we're going to try and stop them before they open the gate." Hopper ends up getting into the room where the machine is to try and open the gate to like, zap the wall. The whole thing explodes, and Hopper is still in the room. So, for what we know right now, Hopper's gone. Elle doesn't have her powers, but the Mind Flayer is now at the mall. I should have said this earlier. Whenever they're trying to get into the room where the machine is, there's like this code that is there, and no one knows how to crack the code. But Dustin remembers his girlfriend named Susie back from summer camp that can crack codes like crazy. And so he calls her on the walkie talkie and they sing a song. They sing Never Ending Story. Okay. That also blew up on TikTok. I know that happened before Hopper died, but I just remember that. Billy is coming and he's trying to literally attack Elle. And there's this one point where he's on top of her, literally about to kill her. She uses his memory against him because she can't use her powers. And so she's like saying, like, you were happy. I see your mom on the beach. Like, I see you in California. You were happy. Like, she's trying to remind him of a happy memory. Because remember, the happy memories help them kind of keep the evil away, at least for a little bit. Whenever she does this, obviously Billy decides not to kill her, and he instead sacrifices himself. The Mind Flayer then kills Billy, and obviously Max is distraught. Everyone's distraught. It's crazy. And then the Mind Flayer ends up pretty much dying because Joyce closed the gate where Hopper was. Right, and then we flash forward to 3 months later. The Byers are officially moving, and they're going to move to California. So the whole house is packed up, and obviously since Hopper is dead, Elle now is going to stay with Joyce and Will and Jonathan. Okay, so they're moving to California, and obviously everyone's upset. Elle finds the letter that Hopper wrote to her and Mike whenever he was going to have that whole conversation with them about, like, boundaries and just, like, respect and all these things. And the note is so sweet, and genuinely the first time that I watched that, I cried. He's pretty much her dad. That he's the only man that's ever really treated her properly, like she had Papa in her life, but like obviously he tortured her. The last thing we see is the Byers driving away. And then that's the end of season 3. Season 4, genuinely, I mean, you're not going to understand if you haven't seen the rest of the seasons, but like season 4 is pretty much the season that I say you need to watch. Absolutely. Cinematically, it's beautiful. The effects are insane. The storyline is amazing, and you just get so many questions answered, and it's just so creative. It has been 2 weeks since I've filmed the beginning of this video because I got sick. Stomach bug is not fun. They do in this season have like a lot of different like plots going on. Russia going on, and then they have California going on. Hawkins, and then they have Elle, later on. It's like a whole thing. So you're just gonna have to like buckle up. Let's finally get into season 4.
Don't try to be heroes. There is no shame in running.
But I'm not gonna lie to you.
Your friends are not prepared for this fight.
Hawkins will fall.
He's not going to stop. Not until he's taken everyone.
Friends have lost.
So it's a flashback, and we see Dr. Brenner, and he's in his house. He's doing a crossword. He's getting ready for the day, and then he goes into Hawkins' laboratory, which we know crazy things were happening always in there. Then we see Dr. Brenner walking into a room, and it's rainbows all over the wall, and we see a bunch of kids in hospital gowns. And then he walks up to one of them, and he's like, "Are you ready for your lessons today?" The kid shakes a magic 8-ball, and he's like, "Yes." He has a tattoo on his arm, and it says the number 10. Then Dr. Brenner is like, "I want you to try and find Dr. Ellis." Then the kid has all these wires on his head, and he's trying to find this person with his powers. He sees the doctor, and he's like, "She's doing lessons with 6." Then all of a sudden, 10 is like, she's screaming. The lights start to go crazy. The alarms go off. Then the door flies at Dr. Brenner, knocks him out for a little bit. Then he wakes up, blood on his face. This season also gets the award for most graphic and practically horror movie. He looks over at 10. Eyes are literally pulled out of his head. His fingers are like crooked, nasty. Arms and knees broken, and he's dead. Obviously, like, he's gone. Dr. Brenner freaks out. Then he walks out of the room, and he sees blood everywhere. And then he goes back into the rainbow room, and then we see so many kids all over the floor, same as 10. And then he looks in front of him, and he's like, "What have you done?" Turns around, it's Elle. It's 11, obviously baby 11. That's how the freaking show starts. I remember when they released this season, they released the first like 8 minutes of the show, which was obviously all of this. That just like raised the stakes so much higher because you're just like, what on earth? Also, I got a Stranger Things cup from Target. We open up with 11 writing a bunch of letters to Mike. We see her and Will at school, and she's holding like a project for her class because she was doing a history project on like a hero, and so she did Hopper. She was like, I did my dad because he saved everyone in a mall fire. Then you see later that freaking this girl named Angela bullies her and like is making fun of her. We cut back to Hawkins, and we see that Steve and Robin are obviously still friends. We see that Lucas is now on the basketball team, and that Dustin and Mike are in the stands, and they're both wearing the same shirt, and it has Hellfire Club. For this club, Lucas, Dustin, and Mike are all in it, and they're talking about a guy named Eddie, which we'll introduce him. Mike and Dustin are like, Lucas, we can't make your game, and Lucas is like, dude, just move it. Ask Eddie to move it, and they're like, we can't ask Eddie to do that. We can't ask him to do that. And then he's like, they're like, why don't you just move your basketball game? And Lucas is like, I can't do that. Back in California, Joyce is doing like a phone business on the phone trying to sell some like books to somebody. Then she receives a package, it's a big package, and there's stamps all over it from Russia. So she opens it, it's a creepy doll. She eventually calls Murray from the past couple seasons. She's like, what do I do with this doll? And he's like, try and break it open, see if there's anything inside. She ends up breaking it, and then it's a note, and it's like talking about something about Enzo and like bring the money. There's a phone number. So they end up calling the phone number, and it's an actual dude named Enzo. She thinks that it's Enzo's from the date that her and Hopper were supposed to have in season 3. It was an actual dude named Enzo, and he's like, bring the money. Find a dude named Yuri in Alaska, and he'll take you here. The queen of this season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just what I think. Max. We see Max. They're at the high school, and she's walking through the halls, and she's blaring Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush in her headphones. And let me just say, I thank God that I was introduced to Kate Bush. I know that like is probably so like stupid of me to say, but that song is practically perfect, and it matches this whole season so perfectly. And anytime I listen to it, I get chills, and I'm just like instantly transported back to season 4. Like I'm put right back where I was when I watched the show. The song is amazing, but because of the stakes that it holds in this season, it's perfect. So she's playing that in her headphones. She's going to the counselor. Counselor's talking to her because remember, Billy just died, and then we learned that Billy's dad moved, left Max and her mom with practically nothing. They live in like a trailer park. Her mom's drinking a lot, because obviously she's sad, and so the counselor's just asking her about it, and Max is like, it's fine, whatever. Like she's drinking, but she's fine. It's like not that bad. And the counselor's like, okay, well you did just deal with a death, and Max is like, he was a jerk anyways, like. She's trying to downplay how she's feeling. She's not being open and honest about it, right? And she leaves the counselor's office, and we see her run into Lucas, and Lucas is like, Max, do you want to come to my game? And she's like, no, like, do you actually really care about this? And he's like, yeah. And then he's like, Max, it feels like you're not even here. It feels like you're a ghost. And she's like, a ghost? And she goes into the bathroom. And when she's in the bathroom, she hears somebody throwing up in the stall. She's asking the girl, like, are you okay? And the girl's like, yeah, I'm fine. And Max ends up leaving. And then we see the girl in there again. Her name's Chrissy. She's a cheerleader. She's like the head cheerleader, popular girl, whatever. Here's like a knock or something. And she's like, I literally said go away, like leave. And then we hear Chrissy's mom, her voice, I guess, and she's like, I loosened the back of the dress for you, like all these things. And then her voice starts to get really, really deep. And then Chrissy turns around, and these nasty monster feet are standing in front of the stall door. Whoever, the monster, like banging on the door. Then as soon as she's like, go away, go away, go away, then the lights come back to normal. The whole town of Hawkins thinks that the town is cursed. And they think that it's because of Dungeons and Dragons. Get introduced to Eddie, which I can say, when this season came out, I had an unhealthy obsession with Eddie Munson. I wasn't one of those weirdos on TikTok. Like, and if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. Being excited about a character is one thing, but the people that made it weird really just kind of like put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and then a lot of people didn't want to watch the show, and then a lot of people didn't like Eddie anymore because they didn't like how the fans reacted. Which I'm sure if you've never seen the show, then you probably know the song that Chrissy wake up, I don't like this. That stemmed from Eddie. TikTok was like in its full effect this season, and so people really took it and ran with it and made the fandom a little strange. We get introduced to him. He's like mocking the magazine, talking about Dungeons and Dragons, how the whole town is cursed. He's like a super, super senior. Eddie and Mike break the news to him, and they're like, so like Lucas can't make it tonight to their games. And he's like, so you're gonna go find a replacement, okay? The replacement that they find is Erica Sinclair. They end up playing Dungeons and Dragons. They're trying to fight this character named Vecna. While they're doing the game, Eddie's like, there's no shame in running. Not everyone has to be a hero. Anyways, Jonathan and Nancy, they're not like, I don't think they're going through a tough time. They're both at that awkward point where it's like they don't live anywhere near each other. They were going to see each other for spring break, and then they decided not to. Jonathan's freaking out about where he wants to go to school because originally him and Nancy wanted to go together, and now he's thinking of going somewhere else to like the Lenora Community College, I think. Jonathan is so musty this season, okay? I'm glad now seeing the previews for season 5 that they fixed his hair. He was rocking this mullet this season. We see Chrissy in the woods. She's standing there in the woods and she's like, hello, like, is anyone there? She starts to kind of hear things like rustling, whatever. Then we hear a bell chime. She like turns around, looks at a tree, and this grandfather clock is sitting in this tree, like inside of the tree, and it's like chiming, whatever. Then she gets closer to it, then like the glass breaks and a bunch of spiders come out of it, and she freaks out, she backs up, she runs into Eddie. Eddie's behind her, and he's like, whoa, like, you all right? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. And then you're like, why are they meeting in the park? They call him Eddie the Freak Munson, and then Chrissy is just, you know, the most popular girl in school, whatever, the head cheerleader. She's buying stuff from him. Then he's like, you know what, this actually isn't the first time that we've met before. And she's like, what? I don't remember. And then he like does this thing where he like hits his chest, falls off the bench. The edit culture was pretty tough when this season came out, all right? Yeah, because now we had Eddie Munson and Steve Harrington. Like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. I'm on my phone watching an edit. And then she's like, do you have anything stronger? And then he's like, Angela destroyed Elle's little Dirayama, as 11 said it, because poor girl can't fully speak English, right? The diorama of Hopper's cabin, and like there's like a squirrel in there. When she said it's a diorama of my dad's cabin, and Angela's like, more like diarrhea. I was like, okay, Angela, I'll give you one laugh. That was funny. Angela shoved it to the ground, like stomped on it, like broke it, like her and her friends broke it. 11's like obviously heartbroken, and then she stands up, she goes, Angela, and she walks over, and she like does like her little powers thing, and she's like, yeah. Do we think that it worked? No, because if you remember season 3, the end, she doesn't have her powers. Then that becomes like a running joke throughout the entire school of them like making fun of her. I mean, girl, you haven't had your powers in over a year, and you really think that that's what's gonna wake them up? Maybe try it on your own time. We got to Max at her house, the trailer park. She's like cleaning up after her mom, and then she goes outside to go feed the dog, and then she sees Eddie and Chrissy pull up in his van to his house because he's her neighbor. They like go inside. As they're in there, Eddie's like, okay, just stay out here, like let me go back to my room and like get whatever. She hears the grandfather clock again. It chimed 4 times. She hears it. She turns around. She looks through the window. She turns around and she's like, Eddie, where are you? And then she doesn't hear him. Then she goes back to his room to try and find him. And then she sees her mom sitting there sewing a dress, talking about, I loosened up the back for you. Then her mom turns around. Her face is all scary. Whenever she turns around, she runs out of the room. Then she's in a house now, not in Eddie's house anymore. She sees her dad sitting in a chair. She turns him around. His face is all sewn up and he's screaming, and there's spiders everywhere. And so like that's what she's going through right now. And then we see Eddie, and he's like, he finds what he's looking for. He walks out there. He looks at Chrissy, and her eyes are like rolled to the back of her head, and she's just like still. And he's like, Chrissy, hello. And then he starts like shaking her and he's like, Chrissy, what's going on, Chrissy? And then the lights start going crazy. That's when he starts doing this, doing the Chrissy, wake up. And then she starts raising in the air. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like something yanks her to the top of the ceiling to where she's like laying on the ceiling. All her bones and fingers start cracking, and then her jaw pops out of place. Then her eyes, it's almost like something was yanking from the back of her head, blood. Then she falls to the ground. Eddie obviously screams and runs to his van and drives off. When I told you this season was like a horror show, I wasn't kidding. So, R.I.P. Chrissy. That was literally episode 1. Next episode, it starts with a flashback of when Hopper was in that one room in season 3 where he exploded. We thought he died. Well, it showed us what really happened, and he was able to jump off of the platform, and it zoomed into him after the whole explosion happened, and he like took a breath, like, so like obviously he's alive. Then he was taken by these Russian guards. They took him as a prisoner. They then show Max like waking up in the morning, and she goes to go feed the dog, and when she goes outside to feed the dog, there's cops everywhere. Eddie's trailer. And so she's confused. She walks over there and she sees Eddie's uncle like standing off to the side, and then she kind of like peeks over the cops, and you see Chrissy on the floor in her broken state, her literal broken. She sees that and they're like, get out of here, like what are you doing here? So she like runs away, whatever. Head of the basketball team that Lucas is on, his name's Jason. His family like owns the diner, I guess. Maybe the whole basketball team is in there because obviously they're celebrating the win from the previous night. Then we see the news like on the TV, and Jason's like, what are we watching? I thought we were watching like a show. And they're like, oh no, a Hawkins student died. It's on every channel. One of the boys is like, hey, maybe Chrissy didn't stand you up after all. And Jason's like, that's not funny. The cops pull up to the house. We'll pull up to the diner. When Jason figures out that it was Eddie, like that it happened at Eddie's place, he then instantly is like, Eddie's the one that killed her. And then he's like blaming it on Dungeons and Dragons. And we cut back to Hawkins High School, and Nancy is the lead of the paper. So she asks her friend Fred if he would want to go investigate with her. Mike ended up going to California to go visit Will and 11. So now Mike is in California. Just needed to let you know that. We then cut to Max and Dustin. Max goes over to tell him what she saw. She's like, yeah, I saw Eddie and Chrissy go into his house. The cops haven't said anything yet, but I guarantee you that Eddie is suspect number 1 right now. I was like, he would never do that. And she's like, well, we can't rule him out. She's like, okay, well, whenever it happened, the TV go crazy, and then the lights start flickering like crazy. And she was like, it could just be because like my house is like junk, but also maybe he was freaked out because something else happened and he saw something else. It's not possible. Like, the gate's closed. Oh, they are trying to get a hold of Eddie, but they can't. Like, no one's heard from him. No one's seen him. They go to Robin and Steve's job trying to look up Eddie's friends' phone numbers. They end up coming across a name called Reefer Rick. They come across this address, and then they eventually go and stake it out. Back to Nancy and Fred. So they go to the trailer park. Nancy sees Eddie's uncle, who Eddie lives with. He starts telling his side of the story. He starts talking about a guy named Victor Creel. It's just like what happened with the Creel family. I feel like he could be involved. And Nancy's like, he's been locked up. He talks about Victor Creel and how Victor Creel killed his whole family and how he cut out all of their eyes, but he's locked up in the Pinhurst Asylum. And he's like, yeah, as far as we know, he's still in there, but what if he's not? Because obviously he knows that Eddie didn't do this. While she is talking to him, Fred starts to hear a grandfather clock in the woods. And what does he do? Walks towards it. Then he comes across the grandfather clock laying on the floor. Then he comes like to a street, and when he looks in front of him in the street, there's a car flipped upside down on fire. A boy like climbing out of the car, and he's like, help me. He's backing up like away from the scene. Then he falls into a grave. He turns and he looks, hallway. And who's standing at the end? This man creature thing. He walks up to Fred and he says, it's time to join me. Grabs his hand, puts it over Fred's head. Then we see Fred's actual body start raising in the air, And then again, all his bones start snapping. So that's now the second death by this creature. California is kind of a boring storyline. I'm sorry, but you gotta have to know what's going on. Elle, Mike, and Will are at a roller rink, and Elle has been lying to Mike that she has a bunch of friends, and Angela being one of them. Angela finds this out, and so she starts like messing with Elle and like throws a shake on Elle. In the roller rink, Elle falls, and so she's all sad, she's heartbroken, she runs into a closet, she's crying. Then she at some point decides to run outside of the closet, scream at Angela, grab a skate, hit Angela in the middle of the forehead, and Angela's whole forehead splits open. Oh! Dustin, Max, Steve, and Robin decide to go to this address. They're trying to knock on the door. And Dustin, being Dustin, is like, Eddie! Eddie! Max sees a shed out back, a shed-ish type, whatever. Steve grabs an oar, starts hitting this canoe or boat in the middle. He's like hitting it because there's a tarp over it. He's hitting it over and over, and he's like, "What? If you're so brave, why don't you take the tarp off?" Eddie eventually jumps out at Steve. They're asking Eddie to tell them what happened with Chrissy, and he's like, "You're not gonna believe me." Max goes, "Try us." So he's describing what happens with Chrissy. I ran away. I didn't know how to help. I left her. I ran away. I was scared. You know how people think that Hawkins is cursed? Like, they're not far off. And so then he starts to explain what the upside down is to Eddie. And then they start talking about Elle and how she has superpowers. And then they're like, but she doesn't have superpowers anymore. But she has helped us fight this creature before. The government and the police and the authorities, there's like two different sides. There's one side is seeing all these deaths happen in Hawkins, and they think that Elle is the cause of it. Because remember, at the beginning of episode 1, it showed all the kids that look the same whenever they died, with the bones broken and the blood coming out of their eyes. And so some of the authorities think that Elle is the one that caused it, because obviously she is the one that was there. Everyone thinks that she's the one that all those people at that point. So they go to Dr. Owens, who was the one that helped Will in season 2. Dr. Owens is like, she's dead. And then there's another part of the authorities that think that Elle's the cure. Like, Elle's the one that can save everybody. Genuinely, I don't need to do so many details about the whole Russia storyline until the very end, because it's just very much like, yeah, they're getting on a plane. Sorry, I can't sit still. We then see Jason and Lucas and all of their basketball friends getting all these materials together, and they are going to go find Willie. Who is Willie? They're going to go find Eddie. Dr. Owens, he's telling Elle something's happening in Hawkins and they need you. And she's like, I don't have my powers. And he's like, what if I told you there's a way to get them back? I'm excited for that storyline. That storyline's so fun. A little side note. In Russia, Hopper is working with this Russian guard named Enzo. Like I told you in the beginning, he's the one that sent the note. He's working with him, Steve, Nancy, Robin, Dustin, and Max. I'm going to call them the Hawkins group. Nancy's like, it really doesn't even make sense why Fred and Chrissy. Max is like, okay, but Chrissy was upset at the school. She wasn't upset here. I saw Chrissy coming out of the counselor's office. They decide, oh, let's go to the counselor's office, like find the records and see maybe what they've been saying. Before they go to the school, they end up going to the counselor's house. And Max is trying to ask her, like, do you know anything that they could have told you that would have led to what happened to them? And the counselor's like, no, I can't tell you. Then Max decides to go to the bathroom and takes the key to the school, and then they drive off. We do see in Russia that eventually Hopper convinces one of the other prisoners to break the chain on his ankle, which ends up like breaking his foot almost. He's able to escape. He like rides something and he like is able to escape away from where they were keeping them. And so he's in this building, this like shed building with a bunch of boxes, and he finds peanut butter and he sits there and he just enjoys his peanut butter. Does he end up staying safe that whole time? No, he eventually gets caught and then taken back to the prison. And then whenever they are back in the prison, he sees that Enzo, the guard, was also caught. And now they're both in prison. So oh my gosh, I keep calling Nancy Steve. Nancy and Robin are obviously still at the library investigating. Had claimed that there was a demon in their house and he had tried to exorcise it, and that ended up angering the demon, which then in turn killed his whole family, took all of their eyes, and then spared him. So they now think that Vecna could have been dated back to the 50s. Then we cut back to the school, and obviously Steve, Max, and Dustin are at the school, and Lucas, he's now there. Max ends up finding Chrissy and Fred's file, and they start talking about how they've been having nightmares for a few days. They've been having headaches and how they were seeing things. She notices that both their files match, and then she realizes that she's been having the same symptoms. R.I.P. Not really, please. And then you hear the freaking clock. She follows it. Why do people follow it? She follows it. She walks out into the hall. She sees the grandfather clock in the wall. It, like, cuts back to her, like, her actual self, and they, like, shake her awake. And then she, like, walks them to where the clock is, and she's like, it was right here, and it was so real. And she's like, seeing the clock wasn't even the worst part. It's almost like she was frozen, just like Eddie had said. And she was like, Chrissy's headache started a week ago. Fred started 6 days ago. And then she's like, I've been having headaches for 5 days. Max! They both died 24 hours after they had their first vision. And she was like, and I just saw that clock. So it looks like I'm going to die tomorrow. Before I get into this next episode, which is arguably one of the craziest of the entire season, I did go to Target yesterday after I was filming. Put it next to my Spider-Man bobblehead. I left with this. Anyways, now we are on episode 4 of season 4 of Stranger Things, and it's called Dear Billy. Now remember, Billy is Max's stepbrother from the previous 2 seasons, and he died fighting the Mind Flayer last season. This episode is so good! So Dustin and Lucas are talking to Steve. They are reading the Victor Creel article. So Dustin's like, so far everyone that Vecna has cursed has died, except for Victor Creel. And they're like, okay, but this happened in the 50s. How could Vecna date all the way back to the 50s? Like, Victor Creel is the only known survivor. If anyone knows how to beat Vecna, it's him. Dustin's like, as far as we know, like, Elle didn't create the Upside Down. She just opened a gate to it. And while they're having this conversation, Max is sitting, like, across the room, and she's writing letters. Okay, they're, like, confused as to what she's doing, but she's writing letters. And the reason she's writing letters is because, I mean, now she has it in her head that she has the possibility of dying in 24 hours. Okay, so she's writing all these letters to all of these people that she cares about. Robin and Nancy come downstairs where the group is sitting, and they're like, okay, we are going to go to the Pennhurst Asylum. We're going to pose as these Harvard students, and we're going to try and talk to Victor Creel. I'm not going to fully get into what they're talking about yet. I'm going to kind of go in the order of the episodes so that you kind of get a feel of, like, how it's unfolding. Anyways, we're back in California. Will, Mike, and Jonathan are at the California house, at Will's house. The authorities that are working with Dr. Owens, and remember Dr. Owens has Elle, and he's going to try and get her powers back. 2 cops are at the Byers' house, and they were told to, like, look after them, keep them from leaving the house, and keep them safe, because remember, there's bad guys coming for Elle. There's some bad guys that don't want Elle to be alive. They think that she's causing what's happening in Hawkins. These 2, like, big cop military dudes knock on the door, and they're like, hey, where's, like, does Elle live here or whatever? As soon as they open the door, they, like, shoot up the place. We're back in the Wheelers' basement. Max asks Steve and Dustin if the walkie-talkie would reach Pennhurst, where Nancy and Robin are going. We soon find out that they are going to Billy's grave, where all the action happens. Okay, we're at the Pennhurst Asylum, and Robert, sorry, I've been watching Dancing with the Stars, and Robert Irwin's on my mind. Robin and Nancy, they go to Pennhurst Asylum. They end up talking to the head guy there, and he's, like, kind of skeptical of them. He starts to, like, not really fully believe that they're students. And Robin ends up having, like, this whole monologue and, like, talking to him, and she ends up convincing him to give them, like, 10 minutes. 10 minutes to go down and see Victor Creel, which we will talk about in a second, because now Max wrote a letter to her mom, and Steve drives her to her mom's house. She wants to give the letter to her mom, and she's just, like, wanting to give her a hug and say, just, like, you know, Max is like, you know, I mean, but, like, with everything going on, like, you never know, and I just wanted to do this just in case. And her mom gives her a hug, and she's like, you don't have anything to worry about. It's all going to be okay. Like, the whole sky turns black, and it's so dark outside. And then her mom's voice changes while they're hugging, and she's like, nothing you don't deserve. So then Max is, like, trying to let go of her mom. Yeah, guess who's hugging her? Vecna. As he's hugging her, he says, you think some letters are going to make things right? Yeah, she did. Sue her. Then we hear the clock going off, and he's like, you've broken everything. It keeps flashing back to Billy and her screaming. And then Vecna says, your time is almost at an end. And then she falls backwards, and then the sky's all normal, and Vecna's gone. Back at Penhurst, they finally go up to Victor Creel. Nancy's like, "We're here because we believe you, and whatever killed your family, we think it's back, and it's out to get one of our friends." So the conversation between Victor Creel and Nancy and Robin, and then what happens at Billy's grave with Max, it's happening at the exact same time. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth a little bit, but I think it's because you do need to see this play out the way it does, okay? They pull up to Billy's grave, and Max gets out of the car, and Lucas is talking to her, and he's like, "I know something happened back there with your mom. Was it Vecna?" And she's like, "I'm fine. I'm literally fine." "Girl, you are not fine." And then Lucas tells her, like, "You know you can talk to me. You, like, I don't want a letter. I'm right here. Talk to me. I'm right here." And then she's like, "Go wait in the car." We're back at the Penhurst Asylum. They're talking to Victor, and he starts telling them the story about how it happened. He has, you didn't see him. I don't really know how much I can show. But he has, it looks like he tried to slice his eyes out. Okay. Anyways, he starts telling the story about how he and his family got a new house. He had just been back from the war. It's like a really big house. It has like a really pretty rose stained glass window on the door. So it's him, his wife, his daughter Alice, and then his son Henry. And he starts describing his son Henry. And he describes him as a sensitive child. And as he is describing him as a sensitive child, he says that he knew that Henry could feel that something was wrong in that house. And when they show Henry, the lights flicker behind him to say that the demon was even closer than he had realized. Then it switches to his wife, and she's getting in the bath. She's trying to turn on the water, and a bunch of spiders crawl out of the bathtub. Him and his family kept having waking, like living nightmares. All right, now get this. Get this. Then we cut to them having a family dinner. The Creel family having a family dinner. The radio turns on by itself, and it starts playing "Dream a Little Dream of Me." Then we see Victor get up, and he starts to like turn it off, like tries to turn it off, and it won't turn off. Then we see the wife get raised into the air. Bones break, eyes explode, falls. He grabs the kids, and he's like, he's trying to break down the door to let them like escape the house. The door wasn't opening. Then as soon as it opens, he goes into his own nightmare, remember, like the visions, and he's back in the war. And he starts to say that he was still in there, but then he heard a voice, and he said it was like the voice of an angel. And we hear the song playing. We hear the "Dream a Little Dream of Me" playing, and he turns around, and as soon as he like turns around and acknowledges the song, then he turns back around, he's out of the vision, and then he sees Alice on the floor, broken, eyes exploded, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. He turns and he looks at Henry. Henry's not broken, his eyes aren't gone, but he said that he slipped into a coma. After a week of Henry being in the coma, that he died. So then they locked him up. They locked up Victor, and he said that while he was in the prison, he tried to join them. So he tried to, to like go with them. Nancy's like questioning him. She's like, "Who was the angel that you followed?" And then we see him laying down, and he is humming "Dream a Little Dream of Me." Then we cut back to Billy's grave. Max is sitting in front of Billy's grave reading the letter that she wrote to him. She said that she continues to play back that memory over and over again in her head. She keeps imagining her going and pulling him away and saving him. She's like, "If I had, like, you'd still be here, and maybe we could have become friends." As she's finishing up reading, she starts to put away the letter. You see the entire sky start to change color. You see fog come around her on the ground, and it's completely black outside. And then you hear someone call out her name. Guess who it is? Billy. Right, so the Billy vision walks up to her, and he's like, "I've been waiting so long to hear those words." And then he goes, "I think that a part of you wanted me to die that day. I think part of you was relieved. That's why sometimes at night you wish that you would have followed me, and you wish you could follow me into death. That's why I'm here, to end your suffering once and for all." Then she falls off of the platform they were walking on, and then she looks back up, and it's not Billy anymore, it's Vecna. And he goes, "It's time, Max." Back in the real world, they're trying to get a hold of Nancy and Robin to see if they figured out how to save Max. They tell him about a song. Victor mentioned the angel was a song. And so then Dustin grabs all of the tapes that she has and runs over to them, and they're trying to figure out what her favorite song is. Meanwhile, in the vision, Max turns and she looks into the sky and there's like this red, so she walks towards it. He decides to shoot some of the vines at her, grabs her leg, pulls her up, and pins her against the vine tree. This is absolute cinema. The boys figure out what her favorite song is. Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. Absolutely. Absolutely. They put it in the tape. They put the headphones on her and it's playing. Max and Vecna can hear the song. Then she kind of looks a little past Vecna and she can see Dustin, Max, and Lucas. Again, if you watch anything, I need you to watch this clip. The end of episode 4, okay? And then we see in the real world, she starts to float. No. She starts to imagine her friends. She imagines all these fun memories of her and Lucas and like their first kiss and her and Elle playing around at the mall and all of her friends doing all these fun things like Halloween. She's envisioning all of this. She reaches out, she grabs Vecna by the neck, grabs one of the vines on his neck, rips it. So it obviously, like, then that distracts him. He drops her, and then she starts to run. She starts to run towards Lucas, Dustin, and Steve. So while she's running, Vecna is like trying to throw things at her. Then eventually the screen goes black. It makes me like emotional still to this day. Again, I'm watching it as I'm explaining it to you. Then it cuts to her and then she falls to the ground and Lucas catches her, and so they're like freaking out and they're like holding her, and Lucas is like, I thought we lost you, and she's like, I'm here, I'm here. And then you just see it like kind of cut to a wide shot of them and they're kind of shadows and they're just sitting there just like they're just sitting there. And while they're sitting there, Running Up the Hill is playing, like the instrumental version. And I, like, still to this day, like, right now, I'm literally choking up just watching that little clip. And Elle is with Dr. Owens, and they show up to, it's like literally in the middle of nowhere, but there's a door, like an underground missile type place. So they've been experimenting ways to get her powers back. So Owens walks her to this room, and we see this big giant, like, tank thing. And he's like, we call her Nina. Okay, that's great. Good for you. And then we hear a voice coming from upstairs. Papa, Dr. Brenner. Okay. Remember, we thought he died in season 1. This part is really campy. Honestly, like, it makes me giggle every single time I watch it. Max decides to draw what she saw in Vecna's little mind. Nancy starts to look at it and she notices the rose stained glass door that Max had drawn. She's been researching Victor Creel for the past few days, and she went to go see him, and so she knows about the rose stained glass because it's all over the news, right? It was all over the newspaper. She starts to fold up all the pieces of paper and grab a Sharpie and outline it, and then she notices that it is the Victor Creel, like Victor Creel's house. I don't know what type of creative mind you have to be able to see that that was the house. Like, if you recognize the door, then that's the door. Like, then you just like know that it's the Creel house. But to sit here and fold all these pieces of paper in like the craziest of ways and outline it in Sharpie, I'm like, girl, you didn't have to go to that length. It's fine. So then we cut back to Elle, and she wakes up and she's in a hospital gown. And guess what? Her head is shaved. RIP hair. And she decides to leave the room, and she enters into these big double doors, and it's a room with a bunch of other kids that look like her, you know, shaved head, hospital gown, and tattoos. Then as she walks in, a man behind her is like, well, someone's a sleepyhead this morning. She's like, where am I? And then she's like, am I in Hawkins? And then the lights start to flicker and go crazy. It repeats that same moment. He's back behind her and he's like, well, someone's a sleepyhead this morning. She runs down the hallway, then she tries to open another set of doors, and guess what? She's back in that rainbow room, and he is back behind her saying, well, someone's been a sleepyhead this morning. And Dr. Owens is like, we shouldn't have just thrown her in there, because they did. They remember they injected her with the stuff to put her to sleep, and then they just threw her in there. He's like, she's gonna drown in there because she's laying in a tank, and then there's screens all around the top of the tank, and it's memories. So that's how she's able to like be in this memory right now. Then we cut to Chrissy's funeral, and Jason and his friends are all there. We see Patrick hears the clock. All right, so after the funeral, Jason is looking at a picture of the Hellfire Club. he sees that Mike, Lucas, and Dustin are in this club and Eddie's in the picture, and he's like, okay, Lucas is a traitor. Like, this is why he didn't lead us there, because he's a part of it, and that they're the reason for this. And Patrick is like, okay, maybe we should just take this to the cops. Like, we're just like, what if they curse us too? And then they all start laughing, and it's like, oh, little do you know. Little do you know that your friend is seeing a clock. Jason decides that they're gonna go after each one of these boys because they're hiding Eddie. All right, now Nancy, Robin, and the whole Hawkins crew. They decide to go to Victor Creel's house because remember, that's what Nancy drew. Steve breaks the window and opens the door. The whole house is left like it was in the 50s. Obviously, it's completely like deteriorating and dust everywhere. Max sees the grandfather clock and she's like, y'all are seeing this too, right? And Nancy's like, is this what you're seeing in your visions? And she's like, yes. So they decide to scope out the whole house. And while they all split up, the lights start flickering. I like if we had $1 for how many times I said the lights start flickering, like we'd be rich. Back with Elle and the Nina tank. And she starts to freak out. She runs over to the camera and she's screaming, let me out, let me out. Like, I don't understand. And she looks in the mirror and it's young version of her, Papa, come over the intercom, and he starts telling the story about a girl named Nina and how she had the love of her life and then he died in a tragic accident, and that she was so traumatized by it that she pushed the memory out and it was as if nothing had happened. So every day she would go to the train and wait for her love to return, and he never did. Obviously he's dead. He's basically implying that this memory, everything that Elle is about to live through is a memory, and it was so traumatizing to Elle that she pushed down the entire memory. So then she kind of gives in to remember the dude's back. Well, someone's been a sleepyhead this morning, and then she plays along. Okay, back at Reefer Rick's house, y'all. Jason and the crew, they go and they're gonna try and find Eddie. Yeah, Eddie is still there. So he's trying to get a hold of Nancy and all of them, and no one's answering because obviously they're in the Creel house and the walkie-talkie's like downstairs. He eventually gets on the little rowboat that was hanging in the shed and he starts to go out into the lake. And so they see him whenever he's like starting to paddle away. Max and Lucas, because they're the ones investigating together downstairs. She's like having to reset the tape because it played and it only has like 46 minutes. So he's like, I wish we had a longer loop. She's like, 46 minutes is not bad. And then she's like, we have bigger concerns. Like, what if I get tired of the song and it's not my favorite anymore? What if Kate Bush loses her magic power? And he's like, Kate Bush would never lose her magic power. And she's like, what, you're a fan? And he's like, yeah, I'm a mega fan. She saved your life. And then she's like, oh, we're going to get this Vecna guy before he gets you. Like, don't worry. Then she resets the tape. And as she's resetting the tape, guess what? Hey, guess what I'm about to say? A light starts flickering. So Max turns and she looks at the light that's flickering. And then behind them in the hallway, another lamp starts flickering. So then they start following it. And then as they're walking towards that lamp, another one in front of them starts lighting up. So then they're following the trail and they see that it is lighting up in like a trail. Then we cut to Elle's memory and they're doing lessons and he calls Elle up there for her to do it. The whole sleepyhead dude, okay? The tall blonde. He's the one that puts the wires on her head and he's like, find the energy, feel it, harness it, like use it. And she tries her hardest to make the light bulb turn on and it won't. Like her nose starts bleeding, she goes to wipe it and then she realizes that both of her hands are covered in blood. Then she hears screaming. She walks out of the room in this memory and she sees that whole scene. She doesn't see herself, but she sees that whole scene of like in the hallways with the bodies on the floor, okay? So it's like her memories are like bleeding into each other. Then in the real world, she's going into cardiac arrest. Back at the Creel house, they are underneath a chandelier and it's glowing. And so then they start remembering back to whenever Will in season 1 was stuck in the upside down and how anytime he was in the room, the lights came to life. And so then they're like, okay, Vecna's here in this house. And then they're like, can he hear us? Can he see us? So then Nancy's like, turn off your flashlights and spread out. So they're going to try and see if the flashlights glow wherever he's going. Now we are back at Reefer Rick's house where Eddie is hiding out. And they notice that the boat is gone, right? Because I told you Eddie is trying to go off with the lake, like he's trying to paddle away. And they see Eddie on the boat. They start running and swimming after him to catch up to him. While this is happening, at this exact moment this is happening at the Creel house, Hawkins crew, they all got led to the attic upstairs and the lights going crazy above them. But then, as they're all standing in a circle, all of their flashlights turn on and they're all flashing. Okay. Then it switches to the upside down, and then we see Vecna hanging there, right? As Jason and Patrick are swimming towards Eddie, and he has the oar, and he's like, "Watch out, man! Get back, man! You don't want to mess with me." We see that Patrick stops swimming, and so Jason's like, "Come on, Patrick, we almost have him." Then Patrick gets pulled underneath the water. Then we see Patrick get lifted into the air, bones break, jaw snaps, eyes explode. He falls into the water. At the Creel house, remember, they're all standing there with the flashlights. All of the flashlights explode. Like, all of them are exploding. All the lights are exploding. So it's like the energy that Vecna is using right now is a lot. Right, back with Elle, remember, she went into cardiac arrest. They pull her out and they shock her. Papa is over her and he's like, "It's fine. Like, you just need some time to adjust. It's all gonna be okay. You're safe now." Then she grabs one of the shocker things, whacks Papa in the freaking face. She's trying to escape. Then as she tries to escape, there's these guards running after her, and then they grab her, and as they grab her, they put her on the ground, and then she like slams the ground. She screams, and then they go flying. The lights go crazy. Papa's like walking up to her, and she's like, "Stay away from me," and she tries to use her powers on him, and it didn't work. And so he's like, "You didn't think that it'd be that easy, right?" And she's like, "I don't understand." He's like, "You don't, but I do." The police now show up to the scene of where Patrick died, and Jason's holding Patrick in his arms, and the police are questioning him. They're like, "Where was Eddie when this happened?" And Jason said that he was in the boat. And then one of the cops was like, "Okay, so then who lifted him out of the water?" Jason's like, "You don't understand. He's just a vessel." They're like, "A vessel for who?" He's like, "The devil." The Hawkins group, they're kind of debriefing in the car about what they just saw with Vecna and how the lights exploded and everything. They're on their way to go see Eddie, the blonde guy, sleepyhead guy, okay? We don't know his name yet, so I don't know what to really call him. I just call him Sleepyhead Guy, okay? He goes over to Elle while she's sitting here playing with like blocks, and he's like, "Oh, you're determined to like win, whatever." And he's like, "That you remind me of somebody in my past." And she's like, "Who?" And then he goes and he takes the block and he puts it in the number one column. And she's like, "One? Papa said he doesn't." And he's like, "Yeah, exist." I know. Sometimes he doesn't tell the truth. She's asking where one is because he's like, "I spent a lot of time with one." And she was like, "Where is he?" And he was like, "We'll save that story for another day. It doesn't have a happy ending, I'm afraid." He says that he was very much like her, very determined. And then he said that one day one walked into the room and something had changed. He was able to use his powers like to a different level. And when he asked one how that was, he used strength from a memory that made him sad but also angry, and that's how he's able to become stronger. So now the Hawkins group, they're trying to find Skull Rock in the woods. Whenever they get to Eddie, Dustin goes on this whole long tangent basically about how the compass that he was using to lead there, like the compass was wrong, and the last time that a compass was wrong or it was affected like that was when an electromagnetic field is like really big and really strong, and so it pulls towards that instead of like the natural electromagnetic field like in the earth. And so he's like, last time that happened was whenever we were near a gate. Then we cut back to Elle's memory, and they are doing lessons, and the whole point of the lesson is that there's a circle drawn around their feet, and they're going to try and all use their powers against each other, and the whole goal is to stay in the circle. Now, number 2 is the reigning champ. He's like beating everybody, okay? Then it's time for 11 to go against him. And so she tries to go against him, then she remembers what Sleepyhead Guy said to her. And she tries to think of the memory. She thinks of the memory of her mom. She throws him across the room, and he hits the wall, and he falls. And so now she's the new winner. And then you see Sleepyhead over in the corner, and he's like smirking. So the Hawkins group, they're now following the compass to see where it's leading them to try and find the gate. And they end up back at Lover's Lake, where Patrick was killed. So then they start to remember that back in the earlier seasons, that anytime the Demogorgon attacked, it left a gate. So Nancy, Steve, Robin, and Eddie, they're in the boat, and they're going to try and go out to where they think the gate might be in the lake. And that leaves Dustin, Lucas, and Max standing on the shore. Back in Elle's memory, she hears screaming, so she ends up leaving the rainbow room. She goes over to a hallway and to a door where the screaming's coming from, and she ends up peeking in, and it's Sleepyhead getting beat by Papa and all of the guards or whatever. Right, back on Lover's Lake, Steve decides he's going to go down there and see if the gate's under there. So he starts to get up, and he takes off his shirt, and Eddie's like wrapping the flashlight in like a plastic sack. And whenever he takes off his shirt, Nancy's over here like staring at him, which I would too. Back on the shore, Lucas is like looking through binoculars and he's like, oh my gosh, when did Steve get so hairy? And Dustin's like, right? Like, I've been telling him he needs to fix that. But he claims the ladies dig it. And then Max is like, wait, let me see. She grabs the binoculars and she just stares. She stares for a good like 9 seconds. When Steve is down there, he ends up seeing the gate. He goes back up to the surface and he tells them, he's like, yes, I found the gate. And he's like, it is a baby one, but I found one. And then he like kind of like jolts a little bit and they're like, what was that? And then he gets pulled underneath the water by a vine, pulled him through the gate, and now like to the upside down. Now he's being dragged by this vine. Then Nancy, Robin, and Eddie all jump in after him. My phone's about to die, so I had to unplug my mic. So now I don't know what to do with my hands. Dustin, Max, and Lucas, they're lying to the cops. They're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We were just taking a little swim. That's what Dustin goes, we're just taking a little swim. Back in the upside down, Steve was bitten by one of the bats and it's like right here on like his lower hip. Nancy's like, oh my God, you're losing a lot of blood. She starts to rip up her shirt and then she has to go like around him and she's trying to tie it to like kind of stop the blood. It's literally just a girl because she's like flustered. What TikTok has taught me with the edit culture is that there's something about a man in pain. I didn't, hey, who said that? Not me. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like avoiding eye contact. Eddie ends up throwing his little vest. He wears like a leather jacket and he wears a vest on top. He ends up throwing his vest at Steve and he's like, that's for your modesty, dude. And I'm like, no, it's fine. He looked great either way. They're gonna go to Nancy's bedroom because in the upside down, everything's the same. Oh, also Murray and Joyce are now in Russia at this point. They are now in her house in the upside down. And when they're there to get the weapons and she realizes that they're not there. And then she's like, okay, and then this wasn't here. I got rid of this wallpaper years ago. I don't know what this picture is doing here. I got rid of this stuffed animal. And then she opens up a box and she sees the flashcards that her and Steve were studying in season 1 in her room. And then she opens her diary and the last entry was the day that Will was missing, the day that the gate opened. Steve hears Dustin's voice. Now remember, Dustin and the cops and everyone, they're in the Wheeler house. So he hears their voice. So he's like trying to call out to him. And then we cut back to the Wheeler house in the real world and Erica notices that the lights are flickering. So then we see Sleepyhead come up to Elle in her memory. He said that the reason he keeps helping her is because he believes that she is stronger than everyone else. But then he's like, but you need to escape today. And he hands her a key card underneath the table to help her escape. All right, so sorry. My chair is really loud and you couldn't hear it with the mics before. I apologize. The chair is like broken. You guys know those toys that you can have those colorful little like rods and you put it in and like it'd be like a colorful little picture? I used to love those things. I don't remember what the proper name of them are. So they use that for, and since it's light, since it's glowing, there's the particles in the upside down, so Nancy can kind of write in it and write what she wants to say. So Dustin asks them, why can't y'all go back through Watergate? And she writes that it's guarded. We think that there's a gate at every single murder site. So they end up getting Nancy's bikes and they're gonna go try and bike to Eddie's trailer and they're gonna see if there's a gate there so that they can try and get back to the real world. Now we cut back to Elle's memory and she's back in the rainbow room. She goes up to one of the guards after Papa leaves and she says, hey, I feel dizzy, the light's hurting my head. So he takes her to the nurse and he is telling the nurse like, hey, her head's hurting her. He said the light's making her feel dizzy. The nurse is like, who? Hurting who? He turns around, Elle's not there. She gets the key card and she opens up a door and she goes downstairs to like their basement area and she meets Sleepyhead down there. Basically, he's helping her escape. So she's like, if you help me, I'm gonna help you and I'm gonna get the tracker out of your neck. Now we're back in Russia. Hopper is lined up with a bunch of the other soldiers and Joyce and Murray are there because remember, Murray is pretending like Joyce is his prisoner and he's pretending to be Yuri. They release the Demogorgon, then the Demogorgon kills a few of the soldiers. Hopper's able to like light the thing on fire after a few tries and tries to fight him off, and then Murray gets into the control room. They end up opening up the door, and so then Enzo and Hopper get inside the door. And when they get inside the door, guess who's there waiting? Joyce! They're reunited. So in the Upside Down, Steve, Nancy, Robin, and Eddie, they go back to Eddie's trailer and they do see the gate where Chrissy, you know, was on the ceiling. Then they walk over to it and they see Dustin and all the kids there. Dude, I literally geek out at this part. I geek out at this part and I scream every single time. I just did. I just rewatched the clip and I scream every single time.
Where do you think you're going? No. You don't have to be afraid of them, 11. Not anymore. Take them. Like I said, we're alike.
Sleepyhead is one. Sleepyhead is one. Oh my god. It is dark outside. I have to find pockets of time that I can film this. Dustin decides to tie a bunch of sheets together and he tries to throw it up through the portal, and when it does, it goes down to the Upside Down and then it stays, like it's like stationary. So they are going to climb up on the sheets and they're going to try and go to the real world. Nancy starts to go, and instead of flipping and falling on the bed like the others, she flips and she falls into the void, which is, you know, the complete, when it's completely black outside, and she starts to fall. Then she ends up in the pool where Barb died in season 1. So obviously Vecna has hold of her now. And then she ends up climbing out of the pool, tells her, "You were so close to the truth. I saw that you were looking for me. How was dumb old Victor? Did he miss me?" So she obviously recognizes that this is the Creel house in his mind. She sees the door and it flashes back to a memory of Henry Creel and the family and Victor Creel's family. But it zooms in on Henry Creel, the boy. So now it's going to flash back between this memory, Nancy's brain, and 11, because 11 at this point is with 1. She sees, you know, the crime scene, all in the hallways, and then she runs to the rainbow room, and then she sees 1 using his powers, and he has 2 pinned up against the wall, and then, you know, 2. And then when 1 realizes that 11 is behind him, he's like, "I told you to wait." He starts to describe how him and 11 are alike, and how everyone always told him that he was different, that there was something wrong with him. While 1 is speaking, we are getting the flashbacks of Henry Creel. By this point, you realize that 1 is Henry Creel and also Vecna. Vecna slash Henry slash 1. We see the scene that happens with Victor Creel's family and how Henry was the one that caused the whole family to die. With every person that he grew stronger and they became a part of him. Then he said that the reason that he fell into the coma was because he was simply a kid and he didn't know his limits yet. So that he genuinely did slip into a coma. But he didn't die. He was taken by Papa. Whenever they realized that they couldn't control him anymore, obviously that's when they put the chip in his neck, and that's what weakened his power. Like, he didn't have any powers anymore. He couldn't leave. Like, you know, that's why he was still there. He's basically asking her to join him in this mission to take over the world and rebuild it. And she says no. Instantly pushes him up against the wall, throws him against the wall, and he falls. And I'm like, he then does this whole Vecna move. She starts floating in the air, and all her bones almost break. Her eyes almost explode. She literally has blood coming down her face, okay? As she's sitting up there, she has a memory from her past. She uses that memory, and she pushes him through the window up against the wall. She ends up gaining all her strength back, and then she uses her powers and basically creates the gate, which creates the Upside Down, and sends him there. I can tell you, I wouldn't show his photo to, like, a surgeon. He's not the prettiest of creatures. If you made it this far, like the video, comment on the video, maybe one of your favorite theories that you're excited about season 5, one of your favorite moments from all the seasons of Stranger Things. Share the video. Just do me a favor, okay? It's taken me almost a month to film this thing. And Nancy is still in the trance, in Vecna's trance. Steve's with her, because remember, she tried to go down and then she fell, and now she's like literally standing there in the trance. And he's trying to wake her up, and then we see that in the real world they're trying to find a tape for the Walkman to like find a song for Nancy. Nancy tries to escape the vision, and Vecna basically pulls her up to him and he says, "It's not time for you to leave." And then he says, "I want you to tell Eleven everything that you see." And you can see the real world starting to split and like the upside down basically come into the real world. You can see all these portals opening up all over the world. Because remember, he is trying to open up as many portals as he possibly can to get as much power as he possibly can to then blend the upside down and the real world together. Back to Elle. She is now woken up from being in the tank. She lifts the tank with her mind. Mind you, this tank is like thousands of pounds. Like I don't know. I don't know. It's big. In California, obviously, Jonathan, Mike, and Will and Argyle, they are on their way to go get Elle. While they're in the van, Mike and Will have this whole sentimental talk where basically Mike's kind of saying, like showing his insecurity a little bit about him and Elle's relationship, how he feels like he's not as cool or he's afraid of losing her and all these things, and how hard it's been to be away from each other. Then Will shows Mike a painting that he made of like their Dungeons and Dragons characters, and he's basically saying that Will is like the heart of the friend group and he's the leader. And Will's basically going on about Elle and how much she needs him, and how if she was being standoffish and mean and distant over these past few months, like she didn't mean to, and it's been hard without him there, and very much a double meaning. Like he's saying this about Elle, but he's also meaning it about himself. And I think he's just having like a really hard time being away from Mike and away from his best friends. From that conversation, this beautiful meme was created. And I literally Will's basically pouring his heart out to Mike. And TikTok just made it like the most unserious thing ever. So now anytime I watch this scene, I can't take it fully serious. I can't. I wish I could. But then I'm just imagining what he looked like from Mike's perspective. Papa is talking to Elle, and he's saying that basically after she sent Henry into the portal, that he always had a feeling that Henry was out there, but he never really knew for sure until now. Like it was just a feeling. That's why he was going into the upside down, one, to explore it and see like what else was in there, but also to kind of look for him because he knows that's where he was sent, right? Dr. Owens brings the pictures of the victims from Hawkins. We didn't know that it was him until we saw the eyes, and then we knew that this is him. Back in Hawkins, Nancy is telling everyone what she saw, and that not only did these portals open up and swallow Hawkins, that the upside down and all the creatures inside of it, more creatures than we know of, were coming into Hawkins, and Vecna was basically showing her the end of Hawkins. Then Nancy says that Vecna showed her 4 gates, and that there were 4 gates that opened up and split open Hawkins. Then Max puts together that the clock that she always hears chimes 4 times. 4 chimes, 4 gates, 4 kills, and once he reaches that 4th kill, that's when it's gonna happen. So Nancy's plan is that they are going to go back to the upside down and they're going to try and kill Vecna. How do you kill a dude that can literally snap you in half with a snap of a finger? Then they realize that he's doing this through his mind. And just like Elle, whenever she travels through her mind, her physical body is sitting there defenseless. She's sitting there, but she's in other people's mind. So they're like, okay, next time he travels with his mind, his physical body is there in the upside down in that attic. So they just want to go in there and they want to kill him. Basically, Max's plan is that she's going to ditch Kate Bush and she's going to try and keep him occupied long enough, make him think that she is giving herself to him for long enough to where they can get into the upside down and kill him, his physical body, before he gets her. They do have to make it past all the bats. Alright, so the Hawkins group are officially making their own weapons, like their spears and their trash can lids with the nails through it. Like, they're ready for battle, as Dustin so poetically put it. Robin and Steve are kind of showing their like regrets a little bit. Not even regrets, their hesitation. And Robin's like, I mean, we have to try. And it's like, do you though? Stop. I know. Stop. I know we wouldn't have a show if they didn't try. I get that. I do this thing where I put myself in everybody's shoes, and I'm like, nah. Y'all remember how I said there were good guy cops and bad guy cops? Yeah, well, the bad guy cops find 11. They break into the whole silo thing. These guys in the helicopters, they pop up. The people in the helicopter are ordered to take out 11. While they're gonna do that, the pizza van with Mike, Will, Jonathan, and Argyle is driving by, and they're like, "Oh gosh, there's civvies here, like civilians. There's people here," and they're like, "Ignore it, just go." So then they try to get 11. Then she uses her powers and throws the helicopter to the ground, and it explodes. And obviously, they can't go to Hawkins like as quick as they need to, so they decide to go to the pizza shop, and 11's going to end up doing the whole salt bath thing. Elle's gonna piggyback. That's what she calls it, piggybacking through her mind from the pizza place to try and fight Vecna. I'm going to explain to you where everyone is, where the Hawkins group is, in order to fight Vecna and what they're gonna do in that time frame. Max, Lucas, and Erica. They are in the actual world, and they're at the Creel house. They're going to try and use Max as bait to get Vecna to pull his mind to that house to go get Max. In the Upside Down, Eddie and Dustin, they are going to be the distractions for the bats so that Nancy, Steve, and Robin can get into the Creel house in the Upside Down and kill Vecna whenever he is not paying attention, because he is in Max's mind in the real world. The way that Eddie and Dustin are going to distract the bats is Eddie is going to play a song on his guitar, Master Puppets. Love it. Blare it through the Upside Down, have the bats all come to them, and then at the very last minute, they're going to go inside of Eddie's trailer and hide from the bats. But now all the bats are there. You're really just gonna have to buckle in. If you've seen the show before, then you're fine, okay? If you've never seen the show before, really wrap your mind around this, okay? Erica is at the playset across the street from the Creel house, okay? She was waiting until Robin, Steve, and Nancy showed up so that, and like whenever they like played with the particles, whenever someone's there, you know? She was waiting till they showed up, flashes the light into the Creel house so that Lucas and Max can see it. Then once they signaled back to her, then they all knew that now it's time for phase 2, which is use Max as bait and wait for Vecna. And you'd think that would go smoothly, and then Jason shows up. Oh god, Jason. His friend basically attacks Erica. Max and Lucas, again, you're dealing with my loud chair, I'm sorry. So when she eventually follows the blue light up to the attic, she starts talking to him, and basically she's saying that Billy made her life a nightmare. So there were times that she literally wished that something would happen to him, and that she felt guilty about that, but then now she wished something would happen to her because of the way that she felt. So as she's exposing this information, Lucas obviously is not supposed to talk, but then he starts talking, and she's like, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to be talking. You're not supposed to be talking." And he's like, "Is it true? Is that true? You're horrible, all these things." Well, that's Vecna, okay? She's in a vision. Uh-oh. Lucas is trying to signal to Erica that phase 3 is ready, right? Then that's whenever she gets attacked by Jason and his friends, because again, they think that witchcraft is going on. We also see that Elle, she is where Max is. So 11 eventually gets into one of Max's memories to then get into her mind so that she can be in Max's mind while Vecna's in her mind and fight him. After Eddie stops playing the song to be the distraction, they go inside the trailer. Well, guess what? The bats end up getting into the trailer. So they're trying their very best to get back to the real world before the bats kill them. Dustin gets back into the real world. He goes. And the bats get him. I didn't run this time. No, baby, you didn't. I wish you would. R.I.P. Eddie. That Max found her good memory that she was going to use to protect herself against Vecna, and she's back at the snowball from season 2 where her and Lucas had their first kiss. So she's throwing all these chairs up against the doors to try and keep him from coming in. Then when she turns around to get more chairs, she turns back around to look at the door. Guess what door it is? The Creel house door. Cute, right? Vecna starts talking to her, and he's like, "You think I didn't see what you were doing? You think you can trick me? I see everything." We hear Dream a Little Dream of Me. Remember the song that was Victor Creel's favorite song that kept him from dying, okay? That is playing in the most distorted, terrifying way. Then she gets thrown against a wall. Vecna's here. Uh-oh. Back at the Creel house in the real world, like, Lucas is trying his very best to explain to Jason what's going on. Jason doesn't believe him, and Lucas is like, I literally thought I wanted to be like you, but now I just know that you're a raging psychopath. Like, he's valid to say these things, but it's also like, Lucas, like, to the normal person, what you guys are doing, you guys look like some psychopaths. Then they start fighting. Jason won't let Lucas help Max by putting the headphones on. Put your headphones on, cause I gotta accept the pain. I don't know why I did that. Guess what freaking Jason does? As he's fighting freaking Lucas, he steps on the Walkman. You know, the one that will save Max. Rage bait. Why? They weren't in your way. You did that on purpose. Vecna has hold of Max, and he's basically telling her, you are brave just like your brother and all these things, whatever. And he's like, it's time to break. Oh, not him being literal. He starts to put his hand up to her head, you know, as we know. And then something pulls him back to the middle of the ballroom. It's 11. 11 is here. 11 is now in Max's mind, and she literally using her powers, and she literally making him float. Can you tell that I've lost my mind doing this for so many days? Elle tells Vecna, I ended you once. I can end you again. He pulls her closer to him, and he says, before I want you to watch. Throws her into his, you know, mind, the red. Elle tells him, Papa is dead. Papa was the monster and that Henry is not the monster. He said he was not a monster, he was just the man. He didn't create me into this. You did. He created the Mind Flayer. And the reason it looks like a spider is because of his obsession with spiders, of course. Elle then says to him, it was you. It was always you, because that's when she realizes that literally every single monster that we've ever experienced was literally him. And he said, and he nods and he says, all I needed was someone to open the door for me, and you did that. Everything's connected. And it's always been Vecna. He goes over to Max, does his thing. She starts to float. Guess what? Lucas can't help her. The Walkman's broken, 1. 2, Jason's literally fighting him. Lucas eventually knocks him out. But before he knocks him out, Max is already in the air. So as soon as he knocks Jason out, oh, well, guess what happens to Max? Arm broken, other arm broken, other leg broken. But before he can fully, you know, we see that Mike is, you know, with Elle in that whole pizza place. Okay, she's starting to choke, obviously, because he has the vines wrapped around her. She's starting to like freak out and like seize almost. He starts to talk to her and basically saying like, I could never live without you. I can't lose you. I never want to lose you. I love you. I've always loved you. I will forever love you. I can't lose you. You have to fight. Okay. So that builds up her courage, builds up her strength again. She uses her powers against Vecna. So stops him before he can completely take Max. Elle has Vecna pinned up against one of the trees. Lucas ended up catching Max whenever she fell. She can't see anything, so because she's distracted him and is using all of her power against him, Steve, Nancy, and Robin, they were pinned up against the wall, remember? They fall. Then they go to the attic where Vecna actually is. And while Vecna is pinned up against the wall, he tells her, you and your friends think that you've won, but you haven't. This is the beginning of the end. Then everything turns to dust. Now the cinema part is that it's flashing from this to Max to Hopper fighting in Russia against the Demogorgons to Nancy, Steve, and Robin about to kill Vecna. And while they're doing this, it is running up that hill playing in like a slowed version, but also a combination of the Stranger Things intro. It's beautiful. I don't even know if you can hear the thunder, but it's matching the vibe. Robin takes the alcohol bottle with the rag inside of it, lights it on fire, chucks it at Vecna. He like falls down and like it hurts him. She throws another one at him. He falls down again. Then Nancy, boom. Nancy's so iconic for that. He falls out of the window, falls onto the floor. This part is so heartbreaking, okay? Lucas has Max in his arms. She's basically telling him, I can't see and I cannot feel anything. And he's like, okay. He tells Erica to get the ambulance, and he lets out, oh my God, he lets out one of the most heartbreaking lines of this whole show. Erica, help! I remember I was watching this with my family and I was sitting there, and you know how when you're watching things, or at least when you're dramatic like me, when you're watching things with your family, you're trying to be all nonchalant, right? I'm literally sitting here like she stops moving. 11 is still using her powers to be able to see Max. Max dies essentially. 11 is so heartbroken that she says no. Then she takes her hand, puts her hand on Max's chest, uses her powers, and then Max's heart starts beating again. Then Hawkins starts to split open, and the Upside Down, the portals, the gates completely open. While the floor is splitting in two, obviously it's happening in the attic where Lucas and Max are, and Jason's still laying there, and I think he had just woken up from being like unconscious. And when the floor splits, it splits right like underneath like the middle of him, so he just disintegrates. The news is calling this a natural disaster, like to unprecedented like measures, like they have no idea what's going on. The California crew, Mike, Elle, Will, Jonathan, then they end up going back to the Wheeler's house, and that's where everybody is, like everybody is there. Then Will asks, where's Max? And then Dustin's like, oh, y'all don't know. All the kids go to the hospital. They go to visit Max, and she has a neck brace, cast, the whole nine, and the doctors say that she's in a coma. They don't know when she's gonna wake up. At the high school, in the gym, they're having like a shelter in place type thing where you can donate a bunch of things, and Eddie's uncle is there, and obviously he doesn't know what happened to Eddie. Dustin has Eddie's chain, and he gives it to his uncle, and he's like, I'm sorry, and they have like a sweet moment talking about Eddie. Mike, Elle, and Will, they're at Hopper's Cavern. They're trying to clean up, and they're trying to get the place back in shape for them to have a place to stay. Will then decides to enlighten us with this information. He said, now that I'm back here in Hawkins, I feel him. He's not dead, he's hurt. He's angry, but he's not dead. Like, I can still remember how he thinks, how he feels, why he acts the way he does. So, I mean, like, he can literally still feel him. It's weird now knowing who this was the whole time, because remember, Vecna was literally in his brain. Season 2. Season 2, he used Will like a puppet. As 11 is cleaning up the room, she hears noises outside, and the door flings open, and Hopper comes through. Now remember, she thinks that he's dead. Hopper comes through, and she breaks down. She's like, I kept the door open 3 inches. I never stopped believing. Then she hears voices outside, and then she sees Joyce, and she reunites with Joyce. Will does his stupid neck grab. He does his stupid thing where he grabs his stupid neck because he's stupid feels stupid Vecna. Okay, and then stupid bad things are gonna stupid happen. You see the upside down particles floating through the air. So guess what? The upside down and the real world have now collided officially. They made it official. Then they go out into the field to like investigate. Why does it look like the upside down out here? Okay, half the field is dead. Then you look out, and you see the gates have now like expanded completely, and then it's like all these smoke clouds are coming into the air, and so that's how they ended. Now, season 5. I cannot wait. I can't believe that they're releasing it on Thanksgiving Day, and then on Christmas, and then New Year's. Like that's everything. I'm very sorry if this video was 5 hours long, but if you made it to the very end, go ahead and like this video for me, subscribe to my channel, and comment your favorite theories or your favorite moments from the show and things that you're looking forward to. I hope that I did the show at least a little bit of justice in explaining what's going on. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what else you'd want me to talk about. I might post some vlogs here and there because vlogging is just so fun for me. I've done it and I've never posted it. I literally spent a month of my life making this video, and I won't get paid for it, and that's okay, because I got to talk about my favorite show ever. I will see you in another video. Jesus loves you.